Absolutely.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to, well, this is not Honey Badger Radio. This is just Brian Martinez, but welcome to my channel, and I have a very special stream. We're going to be talking the comics industry, specifically Marvel, but it could turn into discussions about any of them. I have special guests that I'm big fans of, and some of whom I am friends with. So I'll go around and introduce everybody that's here. First, I'm just going from left to right, no particular order. Mim Headroom. Hello, Mim. How are you?
Hello, my man. I'm all good. How you doing?
I'm good. Thank you for joining us on the call.
Not to worry.
Yep. And also we have Micah Curtis. Hello, Micah. How are you?
I am doing phenomenal.
Oh,
Excelsior,
right.
Since we're talking comics.
It's good to have you on. This should be really interesting. We also have Diversity in Comics. Hello, Diversity. How are you?
Hi, can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Indeed.
Yes, we can.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, yeah, I'm reporting in from the Pig and Steak restaurant in Marion, Virginia.
So, Diversity in Comics is using a Wi-Fi signal in a parking lot of a restaurant. But we'll see how long that holds up. But thanks for taking the time to join us on the call.
Oh, thanks, yeah.
And lastly, we have Aiden Paladin, who has been on HBR a few times. Hey, Aiden, how are you?
Hey, I'm good. Altana Volt. How's it going, guys?
Very good, very good. This should be a lot of fun. So, I noticed you guys because I started to, I'm really big into comics. As a kid, I grew up with them. I have a very personal relationship with comics that goes back to essentially being a really poor Puerto Rican kid in a super low income neighborhood where the only means of entertainment I had besides whatever shit was on television was my mother, who would get these 10 for $1 comics that were wrapped in a plastic bag that had no covers, and they were completely random, so you wouldn't get like a series or anything. I would just get like a Star Wars comic, a Micronauts comic, and they were from like the 70s, and so they were old books too. And that was basically how I got into it. I just loved that stuff. So grew up with it. I actually have a comic of my own. It's currently, well, it was a web comic, but now I've printed it, and I'm working on another one that I want to do a superhero comic of. But I've noticed that the culture surrounding the comic industry has changed a lot, and in many ways, it's in ways that I don't really like. I've noticed that comics have stopped being exciting. They stopped being fun, not all of them, but what I've seen, and I'm worried about where these trends are going. So I wanted to, because I saw your videos where you've been talking about them in various ways, and we may not all agree on everything related to this topic, but I think it's important that we hash these things out. So I have assembled the shitlords, and I thought we would discuss this stuff. So my first question, I want to ask you guys this something a little bit personal, and I'll go around and see what you guys, your answers are. How did you get into comics? And I'm gonna push that one to Aiden Paladin first. Like, what got you into it?
It's interesting, actually. I talked about this on my stream really briefly the other day, is that when I was a kid, well, there were the cartoons on the air. So back then it would have been like Batman TAS, Superman TAS, the old X-Men show, the original one. My dad had just long box after long box of old Silver Age comics, and he just gave them to me. And I would go through and read those all day long. It's how I got into Daredevil, because Daredevil, this would have been like 1995, around then, and 96. The Daredevil movie came out, 98, 97?
Oh, you're talking about the
it was the
Ben
one,
Affleck
one, I think. The terrible one. Hey, the director's cut's okay.
No, it is.
Tolerable. It's tolerable.
It is. I agree with you. I actually had the director's cut on DVD. I'm okay with it.
Yeah, Michael Duncan Clark does an excellent job. But yeah, I would read those all day, and I loved it. And then, it basically, when I went to college, it was around the time when the Marvel movies started to come out, and I thought, you know what, yeah, maybe I'll get back into comic books. And I started going, and I went crazy. I read absolutely everything I could get my hands on, just for years. Mm-hmm. And then I got burnt out.
Yeah.
Man. I mean, it happened about when this stuff started. And basically from around 2008 till 2015, I picked up comics every single Wednesday. I was, a militant reader a little bit. I read everything, yeah. And I went back and read all the stuff that I had missed in between the Silver Age and modern times, or at least a lot of the big things. I didn't read everything, obviously, because there's some real crap in there too. But yeah, that's how I got into comics, and it's been a major thing for me. And I obviously, even though I don't really do a lot of comic book related content, I obviously styled my avatar with my I'm Not Daredevil shirt from Mark Waid's run, because I love that run.
Okay. So I'm guessing that your favorite character is probably Daredevil?
Yeah.
Okay. It's a good character. It's a very good character. All right, I'm going to move on to diversity in comics. Same question. How'd you get into comics?
Okay, so mine was what I thought was the average way, but I'm finding out it isn't, is probably being a kid going on trips to grandma's house and being handed 3 random comics from a 7-Eleven, turnstile. But I've actually gotten in and out of comics like 3 times. Then I quit because I was like 6 and I said I'm too old for comics. And then I got back in when I was in grade school because of the G.I. Joe and Transformers. And then I was too old for comics again. And then in the 9th grade, an art teacher said, your art style looks like comics. So I went and I looked at, the comics. It was like Todd McFarlane. So then I've pretty much been in it I've been in and out of it mainly because of money. The years that Aiden was in it was the years that I was out of it. Because I was just a kid and I was broke. And basically the channel subsidizes me reading comics again.
Yeah. Comics got really fucking expensive for a while there, too.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I mean,
They still are.
75 cents is how much they were when I was buying them. And then they were like $4. And I'm like, what the fuck? And I know why. It was like they were putting this nice paper in there and fucking these foil covers and shit. So, okay. So, and your favorite character. Now, I'm not talking about like somebody's run or, under like the character that you like the most.
Oh, that's a good question. I mean, Daredevil's a good one. The funny thing is I talk about identity politics and how it doesn't really work. But growing up, I was Irish Catholic, so I really like Daredevil because of that aspect.
It's great.
Right now, I'd probably be someone more like Cable, especially being older. It's kind of weird to have heroes younger than you. So I'd probably say someone like Cable, who I was collecting since his first book.
Yeah, okay. I got that. All right, thank you. Micah Curtis, same question.
With me, I actually remember the exact issue that I got into comics on. It was Amazing Spider-Man 361. It's the introduction of the character of Carnage, or rather his first fight with Spider-Man. And I'm trying to remember. It was David Michelini who was writing it, who is probably my favorite Spider-Man writer of all time. And art by the wonderful Mark Bagley, I still to this day think that he draws the best Spider-Man of just about any artist. People throw like John Romita at me or what have you. Bagley all the way. But and then after that happened, that was kind of the 90s were kind of a weird heyday for comics because, as Aiden mentioned, there were animated series out the butt. But for me, it was the Marvel Action Hour. You had Iron Man and the Fantastic Four, and that's what got me into that. And then you had the X-Men animated series and so on and so forth. So that was kind of my heyday. And
so it was
when I got into it,
like the TV shows and stuff, the cartoons.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I still love them to this day. X-Men the animated series was like a weekly thing with me and my dad because my dad's a preacher. And at one point, I want to say it's like the 3rd episode of the animated series, Beast quotes John Wesley. And my dad overheard that, and he just sits down and starts watching with me, and happened weekly ever since. So, yeah,
that's really interesting. It's very interesting. That a Beast quote would have been done in that way, and that it got your dad's attention. I think that's pretty cool.
Yep. So ever since then, he's loved that character. And then I kind of as time went on, I kind of went in and out of comics. When I was in high school, I wasn't reading, but when I got into college, I picked up a couple of books, but my buddy who had like a bunch of backlogs introduced me to Garth Ennis's Punisher run, which still is one of my favorites of all time. Brian Michael Bendis's run on Daredevil, which I need to go back and read at some point. And a couple of I know one of the few that Bendis can't write outside of street level, but man, his street level stuff is pretty good. But And then I fell out again after they started becoming way too reliant on events because we had like Civil War, then Secret Invasion.
Before
and
that,
like, stop.
Wasn't before that there was House of M too, right?
I got to throw House of M in there too, and Avengers Disassembled was even before that.
Yep, that's right.
And personally, I thought Avengers Disassembled was shit, though the Thor Ragnarok comic was really good, and the movie better pull from that, or I'm going to be pissed.
I'm not expecting it to.
Yeah, it looks like they're pulling more from Planet Hulk. I'm like, fuck.
Yeah. Isn't that bizarre? But that's okay. I've been asking for a Planet Hulk movie since the beginning. So if you want to do Planet Hulk and call it a Thor movie, go ahead.
Yeah.
Well, they're not going to get Reed Richards anytime soon.
Although they really need to. Jesus Christ.
Yes.
Fox.
God.
Yeah, I know. You know what? I want to say something about Fantastic Four. Don't let me forget. I want to bring that up later on because I think I know why. One of the reasons why Hollywood cannot get a fucking Fantastic Four movie right. So, okay, your favorite character?
Venom, the Eddie Brock version, who just recently came back, and I have been loving the run on it. It's written by, oh my god, I just did a video on this that came out today. Why am I forgetting his name? Mike Costa, who's not really that well known. He did a bunch of stuff for IDW. You know, like Transformers and G.I. Joe. And I can't remember the name of the artist. Gerardo Sandoval is the artist, and they're doing a fantastic job. You know, my favorite character of all time is being written well again. In this day and age, I'm in utter shock, but couldn't be happier.
All right, yeah, Venom, cool. I mean, I remember I had Spider-Man number 300, so when all that went down, that was pretty legendary. All right, Mim Headroom, same question.
Yeah, so in the UK, it is, or it was anyway, just absolutely near enough impossible to get hold of comics, and British telly was absolute trash. But you'd sort of come across things like Batman, the animated series, and just that opening was enough to hook me as a kid. And then, you know, you sort of had that between stuff like Sailor Moon, Pokemon, whatever. And then as we got a bit older, you know, the family started getting a little bit more money. So we got cable. So there was Fox Kids and all the X-Men and stuff like that. Then I went off to university, and that was like the first time that I had some real money in my back pocket. And living in London at the time, there was obviously a load of comic book stores in Central. So I was like, right, I am going to go and actually put money down for comics. So every Sunday I'd walk from King's Cross down into Central London. I think I put away probably about $20 worth on comics, and I just built up a thing. Before that, obviously, I was trying to get hold of stories as I could. So it'd be stuff like, you know, illegally downloading. Not that I did that, mind, but downloading stuff like Spawn and Hellblazer, Constantine, and just reading loads of manga and stuff like that. But buying comics roughly around the time that Fear itself was a thing. So when was that? 2010-ish. Just mainly because I ran out of money. Like I was like, okay, I'm just going to buy just buy Wolverine, and I was like, and I can buy Wolverine and X-23 and Daken and Venom, and then I had to stop. Got out of it for a couple of years afterwards because I was skint as anything. Started doing my YouTube channel. That got a bit too much for me, the whole politics side of things. I was like, all right, do you know what? Let's stop doing politics. Let's just chill out for a bit, and started reading up some comics again. So went back and read Planet Hulk, Annihilation, revisited Marvel Civil War, and I was like, all right, let's see what modern Marvel's doing. I was like, oh my god, this is absolute trash. There is a problem here.
Yeah.
So see, they coalesced. I was like, I talk too much shite anyway. I'm reading these terrible comics. I feel like I've got to start putting out something that's just alerting people to how bad this is. And then obviously stumbled across Diversity in Comics, yourself, Micah. Micah, sorry, you got to forgive me, bro. I'm going to say Micah so much.
That's all right.
Right, it's terrible. It's just a Europeanized way of your spelling. And Aiden, your channel as well. So I was like, all right, I'm in a position here to do something.
And
that was mostly it.
All right, and you favorite character?
My favorite character would have to be Constantine. Just straight off the bat, he is jammy as anything. There was one moment that solidified to me that this guy was a legend. It was in one of the earlier runs, sort of around the 80s. Some demon had conjured together 4 football hooligans to come after him. So it was some weird golem thing, like 4 heads, 8 arms, and whatever. You know, they're chasing after Constantine through the streets of London. They're like, "Oh, we're going to tear you apart." So Constantine's not a fighter, and he's like, "All right, how do I get out of this one then?" And he notices on one of the arms is a tattoo for the football club of Chelsea, and on the other one is the tattoo for the football club of Arsenal. And he just goes, "Hey lads, who do you support on a Saturday then?" And like 2 of the heads go Arsenal, 2 of the heads go Chelsea, and they literally just tear each other apart. And he just
it's such a Constantine thing to do.
Yeah, straight up.
That's fucking great. That's awesome. So. I think Mim kind of already, to some degree, kind of already answered this question, but I'm gonna just put it out there for all you guys, and we'll try not to talk over each other if at all possible, but because then the people listening can't really hear what we're saying. But when did you guys realize that the social justice push was appearing in comics, and when did it become a problem for you? Like, was it always from the beginning kind of, cringy, or did you kind of like put up with it for a while and then you were like, okay, this is getting too much, or what? When did you see that? Was it a specific book, whatever? And I just throw that out there for all you guys, because here's the thing: I haven't been reading comics in a while. I kind of stopped because I just wasn't able to do it. But I was like really into this Black Panther run from like the early 2000s, and I was also reading some other titles, some X-Men and stuff. But I stopped because I just couldn't keep up with it. And then all this, like the female Thor thing happened, and I was like, I'm not going back to read comics, at least not until they straighten this shit out. So when did you guys see that it was an issue? Because there's a lot that I don't know.
There's a lot to unpack there, I think. First of all, comics tend to go through these kind of weird phases. Like you mentioned the Dark Age sort of the guns and the...
yeah, that's the Iron Age of comics, which started in the 90s, which is basically when Image sort of came out and everyone was trying to... I don't know, I guess it was kind of like thought of as edgy, because there were all these characters with katanas and machine guns and leather jackets and 5 o'clock shadows.
The CCA no longer had the ability to tell them what to do.
Yeah.
So it was like, oh, we'll just publish absolute, like, insane shit. Now, I think that was part of it. So the comics always go through these weird phases, and when it first started, I first started it, I was like, all right, this is just some stupid shit that they're going to see. Because it's the same thing where, you may not know this, but Marvel pretty much almost went bankrupt in the 90s by doing that shit. By doing the foil covers and having just terrible pouches and guns and katanas didn't actually do well for them in the long run.
Also, they were trying to do this thing where they were making multiple they were doing all these first issues and making multiple prints of it, and they would throw a foil, like a collector's card. It was all about trying to like get that collector market in the 90s. Yeah,
DC started doing that shit first, though. Like, we're gonna bitch about Marvel, but if you go back to New 52, DC basically said like, hey, remember when Marvel almost went bankrupt in the 90s? Let's try that thing again. At least from my recollection, I was like, that was really stupid, because DC actually had the first symptoms of this, like when New 52 launched, because Batgirl was a big one where I was like, oh god, what's this? I
think Batgirl is really key to this whole thing. The funny thing is that I think this started at DC, like you mentioned.
When you say Batgirl, for the folks that are watching that may not know, and for me, because I might be wrong here, you're talking about when they sort of brought back the original Batgirl and put her in like that kind of,
uncrippled her?
Yeah, they uncrippled her and they put her in like the super unsexualized costume, and she's like taking a selfie in the mirror, like that one?
Yeah.
Okay.
That one, I really picked up on it back then. And this stuff had actually, I think the whole SJW thing started a while ago on the forums, because, and I'm talking like 10 years ago, forums are always, kind of wild places, but then I started to notice that if you didn't have one politics, you had a very limited shelf life on them. And at first it was subtle, and then it was very unsubtle. I mean, if you didn't have the party line, you were going to be on for a couple months and then be gone. And then what happened is the forum people bubbled up to the mainstream, and then they started doing the Mean Girls routine. But yeah, so Batgirl, I really think, is where it all started. Because it was all politics all the time. I actually did a video on this like a week ago. But it started with Gail Simone. She had kind of not that great run, and then she was
Right.
kicked off for bad sales.
Yep.
Yes.
So Gail
And Gail
Simone's
Simone's
And,
not an impossibly bad writer. She's done a decent run. She's done Birds of Prey. She's done Deadpool okay. It's just that she all of a sudden, yeah, this was actually, I think, before Gamergate, that Gail Simone started bitching on Twitter and shit all the time. Maybe it wasn't even Twitter back then. I don't remember, see? But she was like, crying the feminist stuff.
Yeah, she was actually the main one where I started noticing that anytime I went someplace, there was a ticking clock before I got kicked off. But so Gail got kicked off of Batgirl for low sales, and then got her job back like a week later, basically throwing up the gender card. And then they handed it off to a new team, and then it was just SJW fiasco after fiasco. And then that's actually really when Marvel tried to do the cosplay-centric. Most of their SJW female heroes especially have very, very simple costumes that are very cosplayable. And the Batgirl redesign was designed to be very cosplayable. So they went for a girl market, but it hasn't really worked. But it looks like DC could course correct, and Marvel is just doubling down.
Yeah. So when you say that cosplayable, you're talking about Batgirl, but also characters like Spider-Gwen and Gwenpool and stuff like that?
Yeah, very much so. And then Ms. Marvel, well, I saw this Viv Vision. I just did a review of the latest Champions, which was a cringe volcano I happily jumped into. Her costume is literally like a sweater with like 3 stickers on it. It is the laziest costume ever. But I think I could cosplay it right now, actually.
Okay, Micah, do you want to add anything?
I think that when I first started, or what really got me thinking about the idea of like this could really start going downhill for Marvel, was when they turned Jane Foster into Thor. And I'm a longtime Thor reader. I started reading, my first like real introduction to the character was going back and reading the Walt Simonson run.
Oh, man, I love that. Walt Simonson's one of my favorite artists. And I love those books. Even the Frog Thor stuff was fucking cool.
Oh, yeah.
That was awesome.
He can write just about any kind of story. And for me to, and it was just bizarre to me for them to take that direction. And then Jason Aaron, who is who actually has talent.
That's what makes you mad, doesn't it?
Exactly.
You can write something.
Bullshit. And it's like using feminists like it's a 4-letter word. It's like, when has Jane Foster ever spoken like this? Ever?
In her 65 years of existence.
Exactly.
It's like they don't know who she is. It's kind of like the way they wrote Mockingbird when well, I don't want to get into Mockingbird. That's just, oh my god.
With the Thor thing, what just caught me off guard is like, and recently I was reminded of this because Jason Aaron, he does Original Sin, which is a really unique story, and then does that crap, and then now he did a comic called The Unworthy Thor, which is basically Thor and Beta Ray Bill kicking ass for 5 issues, and it's great. And I'm like, Jason, what the fuck happened to you? where did you lock yourself in a closet for a few years? Like, what the hell? He's
always been that way, though. Aaron has always been one of the most inconsistent writers at Marvel. Like, he'll do something great, and then he'll just write shit. I would say that about Matt Fraction too, because I either love Fraction, and because if he's not motivated, and people will accuse Matt Fraction of being a little bit of an SJW, because he is. Yeah. But he's either going to knock it out of the park and it's going to be Casanova, or it's going to be Fear itself.
Yeah, basically. Daniel Way is the same way as well. So
no, never. I just hate him.
Mim, did you want to add something?
Well, I mean, obviously, where I was paying attention to like Gamergate and the Sad Puppies Hugo Awards thing, I sort of had an idea that maybe comic books were going down this path. But yeah, it wasn't until, like I said, a few months back, I sort of thought, all right, let's get back into comics. Let's read something a little bit more modern. I thought, all right, let's give this Miss Marvel, the 2015 run, a shot. And just that opening page where she's smelling the meat, and you're just like, infidel meat, and you're like, oh, what is this? What is this for? And just throughout it, her costume just did not fit, and you're like, this doesn't feel right. Started reading bits on Captain Marvel, because again, you see like the promo pictures for Captain Marvel, and you're like, that looks relatively cool. Like, I like the art style of the covers and stuff like that. Then you get into the story and you're actually seeing it panel by panel, and you're having to do mental work to go, right, I'm reading a comic about a woman right here. And then Iceman issue 1 dropped. And Jesus Christ, I was like, seeing a grace, bruv. You are my nemesis right now, because you are taking a character who could be cool. Like, I watched...
pun intended?
No pun intended. I watched beforehand. I watched Comics Explained's video on Iceman, and you know the stuff that he could potentially do. And I'm like, you know, coming from the sciences, I'm like, man, this character is interesting. And then it was nothing but a gay parable. It wasn't a story, like a superhero story about a character who's gay.
Whoa, Diversity's phone is ringing or something. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Mim.
Yeah, it was just a story about a gay character who happened to be a superhero. And you just sit there and go, people are paying money for this. It's not exciting. It's not interesting. It just exists for the sake of existing. And then, yeah, picked up Champions as well. And it just got worse and worse from there.
Yeah.
But the thing that I find offensive about that, it's like, it's not as if there haven't been good gay characters. I mean,
yeah, North Star.
Apollo and Midnighter, like nobody can. I mean,
Apollo and Midnighter, so awesome.
Right, exactly. Nobody gave a shit up until this stuff happened, and comics have always been kind of diverse. I talked about this in my stream in terms of Chris Claremont's run on the X-Men.
Yeah.
Being so, like, obvious allegory. So, like, when people think of the X-Men, they generally are thinking about Chris Claremont. They're not thinking about 1960s Stanley's stuff. Like, they're not thinking about that. They're thinking about Chris Claremont. And it's an obvious allegory for racism. You can make it homosexuality.
You could make I think you could make a case for X-Men for being about any kind of bigotry. And it's so it's so highbrow. I'm sorry, but I think it is. The X-Men allegory is so highbrow that it's almost above identity politics, because it talks about being sort of singled out in general. So you can apply it to anything: being gay, being of another race, being from another nation, you know, whatever. And that's why it works better than when you tack on and you're really on the nose with the thing that you want to talk about. That's why I thought making Iceman gay it was weird, because he was making there was a bigger deal about him being outed as gay than there was about him being a mutant. And I'm like, but isn't being a mutant a lot worse? Like, there are literally people, like, you know, that are trying to round up mutants and kill them. That's not really happening with gays. Like, why are you... The mutant thing is enough, is what I'm saying.
Right.
It's
well, not being rounded up outside of Chechnya, anyway.
Yeah.
But they, it's not like he's even the first mutant, because there's been, like North Star was, like, that was a huge, when was that though? Because when North Star got married, that was a big thing. But
that was during Alpha Flight, Yeah,
that was back in the 80s. Like, that's what I'm saying. Like, nobody cares. Like, this already, we already talked about these issues. That doesn't mean we can't do it again, but they handled the North Star thing so much better, because it was done in a way where it was like, they didn't, I don't remember any virtue signaling to the extent that it happens now. It's just really sloppy these days.
Yeah, Claremont had something that a lot of writers these days don't either. Well, they either don't possess it, or they're completely and totally incapable of using it for political reason. And that's subtlety. He could make a character like Magneto come across like Malcolm X, but it's a subtle thing. You have to really listen, like, read what he's saying. Same with Professor X and Martin Luther King Jr. Whereas you compare that to, I just finished catching up on X-Men Gold. Mark Guggenheim, who's not a bad writer, but he is about as subtle as a sledgehammer through a coffee table. And on X-Men Gold, especially like the villain, I can't forget. I just forgot her name, but her way of speaking and her her policy directions that she's suggesting are straight out of the book of Richard Spencer, word for word. And then you had the Red Skull basically sounding like Donald Trump not too long ago. So
but they made the Red Skull sound reasonable by doing that. And I know that he was not supposed to.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, hey, you're making me like Red Skull. Is like, oh, look, you sound now here. I've got this argument. People have made this argument at me, which is, well, Hitler sounded very reasonable. therefore Trump is Hitler. And so if you agree with anything Red Skull is saying, which he's talking about like nationalism essentially, then you agree with Hitler or something.
Red Skull did nothing wrong.
That's also the thing with a lot of the comics. You know, it's more that they're not giving us the escapism from the day-to-day politics of the real world. You have the Red Skull who essentially just rephrases things that Trump has said. You had, who was it, Odin, and that bloody bracket of
Boar. That was Odin's father. Odin's father. Who for some reason had opinions on Israel. I guess he's on Reddit down there. But yeah.
But then if you go back and read stuff like the Infinity Wars and the Infinity Gauntlet stuff, you know, you're reading the dialogue of Thanos, and you're like, this is almost Shakespearean. Like, you just have pages of him just being a villain. You know, there's no politics there. There is just this character who's out for absolute power. And you're like, okay, I'm registering this guy as villain. There is nothing in this world I can compare him to except for a villain in a heroic narrative. But now, yeah, you have MODOK redrawn as Trump, just to go, well, you know, Trump's a bad guy, MODOK's a bad guy. There you go, guys, enjoy it. And you're like, just give us some quality, guys.
Yeah. I want to also point this out. I just thought about this. This is a quick aside, because we were talking about North Star, and I thought, when did he get married? Because I want to talk about how quickly this has gone absolutely down the rabbit hole. So North Star was the first comic character to get gay married in comics. That was 2012. I didn't know. I had to recheck the year. I remember, was it 2013 that Dan Didio said that Batwoman couldn't get married in J.H. Williams' run, essentially, and canceled the gay wedding? So we're talking like 2013, maybe 2014, this whole gay thing was still being a little bit contested, because his rationale behind that, I was at Baltimore Comic-Con when he announced that they were not going to do the Batwoman wedding, and I was very mad because it was J.H. Williams was great. And he said, well, nobody in New 52 DC is married. I'm like, I'm pretty fucking sure that Aquaman and Mera are married. And I was sitting in the crowd just irate. That was 3 years ago, 4 years ago. And now it is completely turned on its head of anything that's not absolutely pushing this far left-wing agenda, you know, pro-social justice stuff. That's now the abnormal. So when you can find a decent comic that's not absolutely dripping with this really horrible political allegory of, yeah, MODOK is Trump, yeah, it becomes like a little surprise. I've been, oh shit, something's not written horribly.
Yeah,
that's why I was so shocked. Oh, sorry, go on, Micah.
Oh, I was just agreeing. Go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say, that's why I was so shocked with Iceman issue 3, because we've had 2 issues so far that was a terrible story and was just there to be an agenda, and then issue 3 switched it up and was like, we're going to give you an amazing Iceman. He goes a bit villainous. He takes on the purifiers, and you're like, that's what I want to see. Because you go back to Champions, I think it's probably issue 4, I want to say. The Champions, so you've got, you know, the new Hulk, new Miss Marvel, new Nova, new Spider-Man, and Vision, Cyclops. They go to a Middle Eastern country, and they find a town of young girls. They're being terrorized by the Taliban or ISIS. And you're like, all right, these guys are going to do something heroic. They're going to liberate these people. They're going to find the big villain who's in charge of the terrorists. And you don't get that. You get this one girl who's like, well, no, we don't really want to be saved by American superheroes. We want to liberate ourselves. And then after it, they just all sort of go home.
Yeah.
You know, it's this setup for a good story, and it just peters off into social justice talking points.
Yep, they do that a lot. I mean, that when I went through the first 4 issues of America Chavez, and
oh my God,
that hurts so bad. When I got through that, like, the reason that I dropped it and said, you know, I'm not, unless you pay me, I'm not reviewing another one of these, because I really don't want to spend more money on buying those comics. But I just remember, like, there were multiple points throughout the story where this character could have learned something, could have improved as a character, that if a competent writer had written it, like a Christopher Priest, David Michelini, Peter David, so on and so forth, then this character would be learning and growing through these ordeals. Nope, still a surly bitch.
Yeah.
The only good thing about her is she has a big ass. That's it.
I watched all of your I watched all your videos on America Chavez, and I watch a lot of other of these social justice-y books, but with America Chavez in particular, I noticed that she is not a nice person. She does not exemplify heroic virtuous traits. Like one of the things that I had noticed is a lot of these books these days, the way that they write the characters, they're all very me. You know, like it's all about me. Like I need to, like the Mockingbird one. It's all about her. She's like, oh, I don't have powers, which is I think is fucking stupid because she's been around since like the 60s or something, or maybe the 70s, and she's never gave a shit about that before, right? But all of a sudden, this is all about how depowered she is, and you know, and it's so narcissistically written, and I'm like, these aren't heroes. Like I think that heroes are characters that they put other people before themselves, and they make sacrifices, and they actually extend that courtesy a lot of times, unless you're the Punisher or something, to their enemies as well. And actually, that's what makes them attractive, because they make moral choices that we as human beings would normally have a really hard time making. If it wasn't obvious, my favorite hero is Captain America, by the way. So,
yes.
But,
yes, good choice, though. But that's a good reason for it. And you're completely correct. Now, I have to, because Bobby Morris Mockingbird has been one of my favorite comic book characters for a long time. So when I saw that she was getting a series, and this burnt me out more than anything. It was that. Because I was like, oh, wow. The last time that we got anything with Mockingbird in it, seriously, was during Dark Reign, which was Hawkeye and Mockingbird, the miniseries. That's actually quite enjoyable.
Mm-hmm.
I liked that a lot.
Wasn't there also like a Hawkeye Mockingbird book too that I heard was good?
That was a Hawkeye Mockingbird, probably during Dark Reign, but then, I mean, obviously there's a lot of older stuff. That was the most recent one that I really liked.
Mm-hmm.
Mockingbird's a D-list, F-list character, and I know exactly why they picked her. They picked her for that reason, because they said, what can we dredge up that none of these idiot SJWs, and that we won't piss off enough of a fan base to make mad if we just give it to someone who has never read anything involving Bobby Morse. So what's her name? Kane. Just give it to her. Have her write whatever she wants. Totally reinvent the character.
Yeah, never mind West Coast Avengers, which was fucking awesome.
I loved it.
I love West Coast Avengers, and I'm telling you guys right now, I can see it. It is within my view. I have every issue of that Mockingbird comic because I kept being like, maybe the next one will be better. Maybe.
Don't you hate that?
Yeah, you guys all have you've made some sacrifices, especially Diversity in Comics. He's bought some shitty books. So
but then you also get to burn them or rip them up, which is.
Well, it's funny you mentioned Mockingbird, because Mockingbird is actually the first book I ever ripped, and it was like Mockingbird #1 from what, like
is that the one with the
beginning
shirt?
of last year?
Is that the one with the shirt that says "Ask me about my feminist agenda," or is it a different?
No, that didn't even happen.
I think that's the last issue where they did that. The thing about and that also goes to the what is it? Unsolicited opinions on Israel. When the SJW writers know a book is canceled, that's when they get really crazy because they just don't care anymore. So what was it? Hella was canceled. So then she put the unsolicited opinions on Israel.
Yeah, that was Angela. That was Angela, I believe.
Angela, Queen of Hell. One thing I got to say about that, though, even though she got hammered for it, and justifiably, and she was very proud about the negative, because the negative reaction from fans equals positive reaction from peers. You're supposed to attack the fans. That's considered a daily requirement. But when Bohr says the unsolicited opinions on Israel, it actually has carrots in the front and back of it, which I interpreted as the, quote, offensive thing he's saying in modern times is the equivalent of what he would be saying in his culture.
Okay. Could be. I mean, I thought, a lot of times when they do the carrots thing in comics, at least back when I used to read them, they would often use that as a way to signify that someone is speaking in a language that's different from ours. Yeah. And
so I was using the idiom was different, but it was the equivalent of offensiveness to whatever the local idiom they would use.
Right.
But wouldn't it just have been better writing to do like 5 seconds of research and find something that would have been offensive? I guess. And
actually,
Norse mythology.
It's not about good writing. This is 100% about getting peer pro approval for politics and pissing off fans. I've done some videos. I think Marvel has transitioned 100% with this milkshake thing into a purely political wing. We even saw it. I did a video this morning where Heather Antos, Milkshake Girl, was asked when the book of the character that is based on her is coming out, and she did not know, and she found the question annoying and then said, "Lucky for you, I sent it to the printer." So this is an attitude of constant attack to the fans that is mandatory.
It's actually really interesting that you mentioned that that analysis of the unsolicited opinions translation, and then Aiden points out that if they'd have done some research. Here's something I noticed about the writing. Do you guys think that the writing has actually become incredibly dumbed down? Because the way that they used to write them when I was reading them in the 80s, and I would read a lot of books from the 70s and the 60s. I actually have a really one of the early runs of like the Jack Kirby, Stan Lee Thor, like the old Essentials. I think you get this really big book with black and white versions of the original comics. I noticed that to Mim's point about Thanos, the writing was so good. It was so in character, and the thing is, they never, they didn't assume that you were too stupid to know what was being said, because it was being written at a college level back then. And I noticed that these days, it's so infantile and sophomoric and stupid. Now, am I wrong with that? Because that's what I'm picking up.
No, not at all. This is the, oh, sorry, go ahead, Aiden.
Oh, no, I just think there's always stupid shit. Like, there's always been, like, the Dark Age was a great example of just pedantic, stupid shit. So there's always going to be stupid shit, but it's not all over. It's in indies. Like, Ellis and Remender, there are people who are doing good work.
Sure.
Brian Wood, there's all kinds of great writers out there, but they're just not working for Marvel because maybe, Marvel is appealing to, like, the stupidest common denominator? Not sure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, a lot of their stuff just it comes across like it's pandering to millennials. And, America Chavez is a good example of that. The new Wasp comic, Unstoppable Wasp, is a lot like that.
We're doing science.
Yeah, Riri Williams.
Oh, yeah.
Her whole thing, like some of her things, like appeals to millennials. And the big problem that another good one, the new, I think it's Spectacular Spider-Man, the relaunch. Same thing. Peter Parker is talking like he's 10 years younger than he is, because it's such a weird contrast. Because love him or hate him, the current Amazing Spider-Man writer, Dan Slott, he writes Peter Parker like a guy in his 30s.
Yeah.
And this other comic, it's almost like I'm reading Ultimate Spider-Man all over again before Peter got killed. So it's such a strange thought that they feel that they need to do this, and I don't think that it moves comics.
No.
Well, this is also a generational thing. If you're talking about 70s writers, these are guys who, back then, the whole thing when you were young was to look older. That's why you would grow a little sparse mustache. You'd smoke and you'd drink because you wanted to grow up and be a man. But now we have 40-year-olds wearing hoodies. And like you said, Peter Parker, he's an idiot. He's a childish idiot. He shows up to a date wearing his Spider-Man suit and a blazer. Like, you're to the point where you want the characters to act like children, whereas before children would try to grow up and act as adults. It's a regression.
Well, that's interesting.
What's really funny about that? Sorry, real quick. What's really funny about that is because since Disney bought Marvel, is that was like a really big criticism of the Star Wars prequels. Was that everyone wants to be Han Solo when they're a kid, because he's the old cool rogue. No one wants to be, and maybe Luke, but nobody wants to be fucking Anakin, and especially in that first Star Wars movie. And that's an exact thing. It's like, nobody wants to be this ignorant, stupid kid. We want to be badass. That's the fucking point of a fantasy. That's the point of this escapism.
It's a wish fulfillment thing. That's why Captain Marvel sold better than, when I say Captain Marvel, I mean the DC version. That's why that one sold better than Superman back in the 40s. I think Mim wants to say something.
Yeah. This is going to be a little bit of a long one, and it's sort of an unfinished thought. But I've been thinking on this quite a bit, and to be honest, it blends a lot of what you guys have been saying together. And I mean, the big question is what role does superhero comic books play within American culture? Now, I mean, one of the you know, you got the sayings about America, you know, it is the home of the free, land of the brave. But the other thing it is the home of is innovation. And one thing that comics did, well, what American society did very well was innovated to the point that you have mass production. And what comic books are is a mass production of an American folktale. Because what you tend to find with American cultural productions is that they take a lot of influence from Europe, which makes sense because you had those waves and waves of European migration to America, bringing their own stories, bringing their own cultural influences. I mean, that's exactly what the whole story behind American Gods is. So with that, you know, you had Stan Lee create characters like Captain America that was taking the old elements of heroism. You have, you know, Doctor Doom, who is the old element of villainy, and mass producing that for an awful load of, well, to span America. You know, every comic book store across America has the same stories within it. Now, there is, in literature theory, there's a guy called Vladimir Prop, and what he did was he looked over 100 Russian folk tales, and he was able to draw out specific elements that underpinned particular characters. So you had the hero who represented these things, the villain that represented others, you had false heroes, donor characters, and stuff like that. So superhero comics, in essence, American culture. Now, when we talk about, you know, these SJW editors, writers, and stuff like that, they almost seem to come from a position that America is bad, American culture is villainous, you know, it's murderous, it's oppressive, and they need to twitch the plot. They need to switch it up. They need to show everyone just how bad America is. And I honestly think that's why now we have very few villains, and we have so many stories where it is just hero fighting hero and stuff like that, because who's to say what's good and bad, guys? We're looking at this from a postmodern perspective and all that.
Yeah.
Unfinished, half full.
I wasn't familiar with the guy that you cited there, but that's the same research as Joseph Campbell, The Hero with a Thousand Faces, which is the classic heroes myth, that it follows this cyclical journey of you go from starting out in a safe environment that you understand, and you go through these trials, and you come out victorious the other side after having been changed in some way. Mm-hmm. Every single great story follows. Star Wars, bringing that up again, George Lucas was friends with Joseph Campbell. He gave him like pro tips on how to construct the great hero narrative. And moreover, you know, it's interesting that you mentioned this stuff about Europe, and I was thinking that, you know, about the European invasion of comics with Alan Moore and Grant Morrison and Warren Ellis, those guys who all came over around, Morrison and Moore on the same period of time, and revolutionized a lot of what happened with American comics coming out of the CCA, the Comics Code Authority. Mm-hmm. It's interesting, though, because we were sort of stuck in a little bit of a stagnation, and because the CCA was stifling for stories.
Huh. But that's the thing. They bring that European and British perspective, and we do seem to be a little bit more relaxed about particular issues. You know, something like Transmetropolitan and stuff like that, you know, was quite on the nose, and it's a great story. But then again, you also see with this twitching the plot. I think that's one of the reasons why people are very, very upset with Hydra Cap. Yes, you have got the whole, you know, what Captain America is supposed to be, but if you're looking at it through Prop's perspective, Captain America was a mythical hero all throughout, 50 years of American publishing culture. And in this one instance, they've turned him from being a hero to being a false hero, someone who presented himself as a hero just until the point that we realize, oh, no, wait, he's the bad guy. And everyone goes, but he's not a villain. He is our hero.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Captain America hasn't been allowed to be a hero for any sustained amount of time in any prime or normal way since 9/11. 9/11 happened. We got a hand-wringing couple issues, and then he's either been in another dimension, dead, replaced, on the run. What did he come back? Come back. He doesn't want the shield. Come back. Extremely aged. And now, retroactively from the beginning, a Nazi the entire time.
Always a Nazi. Oh my god. You know what? That's another one of those just absolute death knolls of being like, what the hell are you guys doing? I could not believe that they decided to rewrite Captain America as essentially as a Nazi. No, he's Hydra, whatever. That was another one of those big signs that something very nefarious was happening in comics.
Absolutely.
Right?
That was something else I wanted to bring up too, which is the way the art's been policed. I think this actually might be before the writing got all shit. You guys, you mentioned I guess hipster Batgirl, right? And I remember there was some controversy around artwork. You guys remember the Batgirl alternate cover with the Joker?
Yeah,
that was
alternate cover for that matter.
Yeah, it's great because it describes also the emotions that are happening there. I mean, it's terrifying. You're supposed to be terrified.
Mm-hmm.
The art should convey that emotion. Yeah, what was the thing with Spider-Woman that started a whole huge issue as well?
That was Milo Manara, who used to draw erotic comics mostly. You would see them in heavy metal, but he also made his own stuff. I liked Milo Manara. I thought, he's been doing this a really long time, and I saw that he did the cover of Spider-Woman, and when I saw the art, I said, yeah, that looks like something he would do, but people just lost their shit over it. Now, I know that was a vocal minority, and that was another alternative cover. And then Frank Cho responds to that by just shitting all over everybody, just trolling the shit out of people with a bunch of sexy drawings, because that's what Frank Cho does. If you know he did the Liberty Meadows and
he shits. I love him.
Yeah. Oh, I love him. And you know what? Actually, this brings about something else. About the art, because it's something else I've noticed. And you guys, we talked about this a little bit earlier with how cosplayable these costumes are, especially with female characters. But I've also noticed that they very, very much desexualize them. I mean, to the point where it's an overreach. Like, they've gone too far. They don't even look feminine sometimes. And I'm like, guys, you don't have to overdo it. I get it. You don't want it to look like too porny. And that's your prerogative because it's your art. Do what you want to do. But at the same time, I'm like thinking, did you guys overshoot? And I thought of that because I remember for a while when I think Frank Cho was doing the Avengers comics and some stuff with Ms. Marvel, who is now Captain Marvel. So the Ms. Marvel in the Warbird costume, which is actually my favorite costume by her. I just think it's a really cool looking one.
Yeah.
And the thing is, it's a really good looking costume. And whenever I go to a convention, people who are dressed up like Captain Marvel, Carol Danvers, they're dressed up in the Warbird costume. Because it makes them feel sexy, and they like that outfit. I like it too for its simplicity. So it's like we overshot, and I think Carol Danvers now doesn't look anything like, and I'm not even sure that her personality is similar to the way that she used to be.
Oh hell no!
Carol Danvers, she's also just a boring character in my opinion. She always has been. They can't. That's it. I'm not a fan.
Go ahead, Mike.
I am a fan, so I'll go ahead. And the thing with Carol is that it's very rare that she's another one of those characters that she never really gets a fair shake from a writer. It seems like up until the mid-2000s during the Quesada era, the only person who had really understood her or wrote her that well was Chris Claremont.
Mm-hmm.
And I can't remember the name of the writer, but during Civil War, that period of time, her run was actually pretty good. But it was because they humanized her. They made her somebody that you could identify with. She was, former Air Force, former military woman. But at the same time, you could really identify with her because she really just wanted a simple life where she could, at some point, settle down and, make a difference. And, now she's this domineering uber bitch. And nobody likes her.
Mm-hmm.
So
they've made all of that, have they not? Every single one of these strong female characters is domineering uber bitch. Describes almost every single one of them.
So they're they all have the same personality, is what you're saying.
In a lot of ways.
Yeah,
I'm trying to I don't know who else. Like, they ruined Squirrel Girl, who used to just be kind of was absolutely a joke.
She was a walking meme. Yeah.
Jeez, but a cute meme, a cute one. And now she can't even be cute.
Just quickly, guys. I think diversity in comics has been really, really polite, which is putting a Brit to shame here. Go on, my man. As an artist, as a comic book artist, what do you think about all this?
Well, the art thing is, again, I think it's a generational thing. This is a generation obsessed with offense, and for some reason, literally cutting the tits off of women is not offensive. I don't understand how that works. But I bring this. One of the things I always do is I do a like a reality check. I'll bring up these things to civilians, normal people who don't read comics. Like I brought up to my daughter, and I told her about Squirrel Girl, and I go, I don't like how she looks, and then she says, well, that's a squirrel face. She has squirrel blood. And I'm like, oh, okay. And then she said, do you like her? She goes, no. All she does is brag about herself. So it's like, okay, great. But yeah, there's a lot of things with just masculinizing women, feminizing men, and it's not a one-off. It's constant. Marvel's become the land of the B cups, Captain Marvel becomes more masculine every single reboot. I mean, I do these screenshots for the videos, and people think that I'm joking. They've actually thought it was Marvel several times. They got excited. They go, "Oh, Marvel's back!" You know, the man. So they're like, "Hey, your video image tricked me because I thought Marvel, and then it's this woman." But it's this thing of they're just kind of messed up. They have this ridiculous view on masculinity and feminine. They overcompensate too much, and there's like a lot of there's no nice way to say it. Very feminine, wimpy beta men in key positions, and very troubled and masculine women in not leadership positions, but high-profile positions within the company. So, or within the industry. So, all the a lot of indie people that are eking into Marvel. Yeah. So they make them ways that will get approval from their peers, which is mannish women with little to no breasts at all, no hips. And once you start seeing this, you can't really unsee it. And then you go back. The thing that I like is you go back. You don't have to go far back to find good comics. Like Michael's mentioned Original Sin. That's a fantastic comic, and it works because it has all those. They're starting to eke into the modern thing, but there's a lot of. I bring up this. I'm bringing up this phrase. I say mostly childless weirdos, which I've gotten some clapbacks on. It's not saying that if you don't have kids you're a weirdo, but I'm just noticing this commonality of a bunch of effeminate men around 40, a bunch of masculine women, closing on 40. Nobody has kids. Everyone has 5 roommates. It's a weird subculture type of lifestyle going into a mainstream hobby. You were talking about you grew up, you said you grew up in a poor neighborhood.
Yeah.
But I think that comics is basically breaking down from what I've seen. It's kind of like a working class, middle class hobby for white people. At least it used to be. And for minorities, it's more of like working class solely. It's definitely a lot of these people, these what do I call this weirdos? They're coming from like more affluent. It's a pose. Heather Antos did not grow up reading comics, and she seems like a rich girl to me. A lot of the milkshake girls, Mar or something.
Yeah,
I'm just guessing that.
No, I also grew up working class. This is absolutely. I think this is because why else would you look up to these superheroes, these mythical sort of figures? Or I mean, you could still do it. Obviously, they're not human, they're not real. But what makes that so attractive to a young kid who, doesn't have a whole lot of shit going for them in terms of money? They can't get the best stuff, but they can read a story and put themselves in the shoes of that character.
Yep.
Yeah, definitely. And then that's why also back in the day, I remember they used to emphasize the wealth, and now they emphasize the genius, because like I said, these are people who grew up with money, so money isn't that interesting, but getting attention for being a genius, everyone's a genius now, and because they will tell you, hello, I'm a genius in the second panel of every book.
Well, I want to thanks for those comments. Actually that's very those are very eye-opening, interesting perspective. I want to move on to the hashtag Make Mine Milkshake thing because we should talk about that a little bit. But before I do, there's one more thing I want to read. Shaman King XYZ put a comment in the chat earlier. He said, Brian, do you know something funny? I was just watching some videos talking about how the My Little Pony comics have had consistently better writing than SJW Marvel. And I will tell you, Shaman King, you are probably watching Mim's videos because he's done at least 2 on the topic of My Little Pony, and there's actually a comic they made. Was it like a cross promotional thing to promote their movie, and it's actually got better writing than Marvel Comics currently does. When you talk a little bit about that for these people who don't know.
Right. So yeah, Hasbro are bringing out the new My Little Pony movie in the future, and they've just decided to do a whole tie-in comic that goes into the backstory of some of the villains. And I thought, just as a laugh, you know, because I'm friends with a couple of brony YouTubers, saw one of them cover the comic. I thought, all right, as a laugh, I'll read it. And I'm going through it, and I'm like, this is actually legitimately interesting. You know, the villain of the Storm King, he comes across as this sort of cross between Deadpool and like Jafar from Aladdin. You know, this really mincing over the top bad guy. You've got this magical artifact that's meant to bring power, but also with it ruin. And he just descends upon this this country, takes it over, just absolutely takes it over, ruins the army, takes it over. And he's surprised. It's surprisingly deep. He's sitting there, and he's like, "Well, I've defeated you, but I don't want to rule, because if I rule you, that's going to mean taxes and administration. I'll leave you, the king and queen, to do all that, but just know that I could come and fuck you at any point I fancy." Right? And I'm like, this is deeper than most Marvel. And we're talking about the art as well. In the second issue, they introduced this female pirate captain, and she's a parrot. And they make it very, very apparent that she is a female, just very, very subtly. Like her costume, the coat blows out at the hips, making her hips look bigger. They give her a little bit of makeup, a little bit of eyeshadow. She doesn't have breasts, but the curvature of her bodice gives the impression, the lines, that this woman has a female figure. And I'm thinking back to, you know, the new Ms. Marvel and Captain Marvel and stuff like that. I'm just going, the balls to do that. And it just makes me laugh that a comic book series that is designed to promote the movie for a toy line is producing a better story than the House of Ideas is.
Yeah, and I would just to add on to that, just so we got an idea of why this is important contrast. I'm guessing that this My Little Pony comic is aimed at young girls, probably, right? I mean, it might be difficult to see, but
oh, I think that they might actually. Do you think that the MLP comics are actually aimed at girls and not at what they know as the brony fan base, who's way more likely to frequent comic shops? Marvel's kids lines, and they don't sell well. That stuff never does. I think someone knows what's going on. That's just my guess.
Oh yeah, I mean, you know, putting on the cynical hat, I'd argue that it's aimed more at the parents who have the kids who buy the toys. You know, it's one of those things that they go into the comic book store to pick up their Marvel and DC. They see My Little Pony and they go, oh yeah, my kid would probably like that. On the other side, yes, you do have the older fan base who are like, I will buy anything MLP. But it still keeps to the general theme of the show, because the show knows that it's got this growing adult fan base, yet it doesn't seem to want to pander to them. It says, no. We sell kids' toys. Our show is to promote the kids' toys. Our comic is to promote the film that sells the kids' toys.
Okay. All right. Well, let's get into the hashtag Make Mine Milkshake. I don't know how much you may have been paying attention to it, but I noticed that based on your videos, you might have slightly different positions on this whole mess. So I guess, well, you know what? I'm going to let Diversity explain it, because he's done some more videos on it from what I can tell.
He's also like at the center of it in some ways.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, yeah. Tell people about what this is, because they not everyone watching may know.
Okay, so Make My Milkshake started with the crew that are now known as the Milkshake Girls. Basically, about a year or two when Marvel started their flood the shelves strategy, they had to crew up some more editorial staff, to which they decided to find the 8 whitest girls at Bryn Mawr College and give them They showed them an Archie comic, and they said, "What is this?" And if you said comic or book, you got hired. So basically, they all went to a local place, and they did OMG milkshakes, and they got about 500. You go, girl. I don't know why that's an accomplishment. And they got 3 very, very light, mildly salty comments. Now, I've got a theory that this was done on purpose. But what happened is then it became the white knight. How can you attack these women for doing this? They're just women having fun, but they weren't really attacked, and they're actually adults, so everyone's fine. Then basically in the middle of an event, right before another event, so in the middle of Secret Empire, the week before our Marvel Generation, so an event, while an event another goes, the entire comic book industry, and especially Marvel, came to a grinding halt to protect basically 6 white girls from getting downvotes on their selfie. It was presented as fan misogyny. It was presented as attacking them just because they're women, but there was no attack. So people went looking for it, but it became some kind of like O. Henry like moral fable. There was no actual attack. There was just a clutch of virtue signaling. And I did one of them. I said fake geek girls. I'd say that anytime because I did a video showing myself being a fake geek guy. There's fake of everything. If there wasn't fake of geek girls, you'd just say geek girls and you know it was fake. But as Aiden Paladin, she did a video about it. They get so angry because they know it's true. You can see their social media. You can see the things they do. They have no history. They basically come into the military as officers without going through officer school or boot camp or anything. And then when you say, you don't know how to read a map, sir, well, of course I know how to read a map. It's like you go to this thing and then this thing over there. So then it became kind of a snowball of them playing Little Bo Peep, more virtue signaling, then like a trickle. I think and this has become international news, I think they got all the way up to 8 mildly salty comments. One of which was mine. One of it's just be like, I'd bang her. Rich Johnson of Bleeding Cool said one of them was basically a rape threat. And
that was the I'd bang her was a rape threat.
Yeah, so, which I don't think that's an actual thing that happens. I think people either do that or they don't. If you threaten to do something, you get arrested for it. There's a viable thing. But so then it was encouraged. People hashtag, people took pictures of Milkshake. DC Comics whipped out the diversity ruler and showed that they were several inches longer than Marvel, with their like 50 women that aren't, just assistant editors that are going to be used and thrown away. And basically it completely overshadowed Secret Empire. It completely overshadowed the launch of Generations, which are the 2 major events for the year. And it basically, the funny thing is, stop me if I talk too long, nope. Heather Ontos was the one actually talented group of the random women they hired just because they were women and they had the right politics. Her book,
Heather,
Gwenpool, is excellent. I bought it to rip it and roast it. I ended up loving it. I shared it. My son liked it. My daughter liked it. I've recommended people. They say, oh, yeah, this is a great book. So she sullied her reputation by basically, purse puppying herself. I'm just a little 27-year-old girl. No, you've been an adult for 9 years. You're fine. You're all fine. Basically, it was one of those things where nobody really won. This is I believe it was a way to distract from Secret Empire being a dud, from Generations. They knew it was going to be a dud. I think it's a way to save a lot of people's jobs, making the Milkshake crew the public face of Marvel. The old thing, you wouldn't hit a guy with glasses on, would you? You wouldn't fire a guy who has a female assistant editor, would you? And that's a fact mixed with some of my opinion.
Mm-hmm. What was your salty comment?
Oh, I just typed, on a response to a response, not adding anyone, I just put fake geek girls when I saw the picture.
Oh, okay. Ooh, yeah, that's triggering. Don't ever say that.
Yeah, again, if you get yeah, I said this before too, and thanks for bringing that up. If that upsets you, and you're a woman who supposedly likes comics so much, why would that upset you if it wasn't true? If someone came up to me and called me a fake geek girl, I don't give a shit on Twitter, first of all, but to my face, I would just laugh because it's not true. I'm a massive, like, loser nerd. That would be just an absurd statement to make. So why would it hurt my feelings? Oh, it makes them so mad because it's fucking true.
Right.
Yeah.
Micah, I know you want to talk about this.
I do, because some people actually got pissed off at me over this. Oddly, and they'll probably be shocked to realize that I actually agree with both Diversity in Comics and Aiden on the sense of, you're gonna get salty comments on Twitter. I get them all the fucking time. I mean, back in my, I guess, heyday as a video game critic, I got a death threat over a Dragon Age 2 review that I did. Somebody said he was going to shove my Jew head in an oven. I'm like, I'm not even Jewish, you asshole. But my biggest problem is that there is this. I kind of felt like, and I could be wrong on this, is that some of the guys that were making comments were kind of just looking for a fight. And the problem with that is that you can make people that are in your proximity look stupid, make other fans look stupid. On the flip side, there's always going to be dumbass trolls on the internet who are going to say stupid shit to you. And the fact that these people who are working for a company that has such a legendary status behind it are honestly bothered by what a few dumbasses on the Twitter say is beyond my comprehension. But basically, it kind of came across to me like just shit slinging on both sides, when really it was a situation that could have been avoided. But ultimately, though, my whole thing was that people were saying that this is the next Gamergate, and I shot that down because it's not, honestly. Like it. First off, we've been having these issues with comics prior to this event. This is not the catalyst where everything changes. Things have already been changing, and sales have been going down and down and down and down. And unfortunately, and Diversity in Comics said this. We basically just bought ourselves another year of Ta-Nehisi Coates writing Black Panther. We just bought ourselves another year of uber butch Captain Marvel, because now again these people become unfireable.
You're gonna double down. Yeah. Yes,
exactly. My whole thing is that you have to make people face economic reality. Because at the end of the day, and my most famous, I guess, video that I've ever made is called "Social Justice Doesn't Sell" for a reason. Normal people don't give a shit about their politics at all. They just want to read fun comic books. That's it. And when your comic books aren't fun, they don't sell. So if you leave it alone and you don't bug these people, you leave their Twitters alone, you dismiss them as idiots, then basically what you do is when the sales start dropping and when the good stuff starts selling better, then all of a sudden they have to face the reality that their approach was all wrong. That's my whole issue.
Do you think, I want to ask this, do you think that it's possible that photo could have been bait? Now, and hear me out, I wonder about this because I've noticed that since, and it might be before this too, but I'm reminded of when they were promoting the Fantastic Four, the Fantastic Four movie with Michael B. Jordan. And the way that initially they were just putting out the trailer and, they were just showing like what was going to be in the movie. Now, I thought it was going to be bad, but it didn't look good to me. It just didn't look like a good movie. So I was like, okay, this is going to be shit. I'm fairly certain. But one of the ways that at least the media and reviewers, but I don't know if the studio could have been a part of it because they did like get Michael B. Jordan to do interviews and stuff. They tried to cross-promote the movie by basically saying there are racists on the internet that have a problem with Michael B. Jordan playing the Human Torch. And
it was the first thing they shilled for that movie.
Yes, it was how they shilled it. And they
no other information about it except for, Johnny Storm is a black guy. Now my question is, okay, fine. Why is Sue Storm white? That's kind of weird. But okay, fine. I didn't have an issue with it if there was a rationale, but they absolutely sold that. And do I think that it's possible this was created? Yeah. The reason why I said that when I saw this that I thought that it could have been the heroine of a second kind of coming of Gamergate is exactly what you mean, though, is that they know their sales are in the toilet and they want to drum up some publicity. The thing with Gamergate, too, is that I've talked about this before, too. I wrote an article about, and yeah, so you worked in games journalism. I wrote an article about there being ethical issues and concerns in games journalism involving people getting bribes, because we were seeing that a year before Gamergate, before Zoe Quinn, before that happened. Yeah. But the thing is, Gamergate had there was a direct moment, an impetus. Zoe Quinn is going to be the epicenter of everything that's going to come afterwards. That Five Guys Burgers and Fries things, that was the start. Like, even though there were issues with games journalism before then, because it wasn't like it just started with that. It was a building, a swell up to that point. And that's why when I first saw it, I was like, oh man, this is reminding me of Gamergate, in that they're going to use this, whether or not it was created, because I think there's a very real possibility it was. You know, they do shit like that on purpose. Let's throw out our selfie. We'll just hope that somebody calls me a fake geek girl so I can feign that I'm so offended and hurt.
Well, and odds are, if you tweet something out to Twitter, somebody's going to do it. All you got to do is find one or two people that have a problem with it, and you can use that and frame it and use it to push a narrative. Because they with film, I want to finish my point about it. They did that with Fantastic Four. They did that with The Force Awakens. And they did that with even the what's the one that just came out? The one with the gunslinger, Dark Tower.
Rogue One.
And Dark Tower. And Rogue One, too. And it turned out, at least in the case of Dark Tower, and personally I didn't like The Force Awakens. I thought it was shit. I didn't like Force Awakens. Dark Tower is at 18% on Rotten Tomatoes, and Fantastic Four was a humongous failure. So it seems like with shit that isn't good, they push the race angle or some kind of social justice angle in order to essentially use moral grandstanding to get people watch the film. And virtue signaling, too, because there are lots of people that said, well, I wasn't going to watch Fantastic Four, but now that I've seen all these racists, I'm going to go watch it just to spite them. And they did.
Oh, for fuck's sake. That was Ghostbusters 2016's entire marketing platform.
Exactly. And they do this sort of thing, and to pick a phrase from Ben Shapiro here, to pick economic winners and losers. You know, they will find something or someone that agrees with their politics in some way or aligns with it, and then they will either use a fan base to, basically make themselves look righteous, and then the fans look terrible, or vice versa. They will make the creator look terrible and try to get people to not buy something. With games journalists, Jim Sterling is the master of this, because he will find the most obscure bullshit, because he's going to spend 8 hours on the internet doing that, because God knows he doesn't know how to do a sit-up. And, he's going to pin this article on his website, and it's going to be a whole lot of nonsense about 3 people he found on the internet that said the N-word. Mm-hmm. But they love doing that because they think that it actually works when it comes to marketing. I can't think of any time that it actually has worked. Like, people aren't wise to their bullshit in the information age.
I think if they know it's a hot turd, like with Fantastic Four and with Ghostbusters, where they were just doing it for, money, and there was no artistic integrity. And that's what all these Marvel comics are. There's no artistic integrity. There's nothing behind it. It's just shallow, pointless virtue signaling and showing our political ideology. They know it's crap. It's selling like crap because they know, and they know that it's selling like crap because it's crap. So instead, what do we have to do? We have to drum up an artificial controversy. And the thing about Twitter is, too, it doesn't mean that it's a real fucking person. Mm-hmm. Even if they, it could be anybody. I could go make a Twitter account tomorrow and go harass them and call them, I don't know, something far worse than a fake geek girl.
There is nothing worse than that. There is nothing worse than being called that. That is like that's like the N-word for fake geek girls. Mim, did you have you been following this? Do you have any comments on that?
Well, yeah. I mean, this is the thing with this Make My Milkshake thing. We've seen it again and again and again, like throughout Gamergate, with the whole sad puppies stuff as well, and follow him on Twitter. I was talking to Capn Cummings, who's in the chat. If y'all ain't subscribed to him, do so now. But I was saying to him, you watch tomorrow. You're going to see the comic press, maybe the Mary Sues, and even maybe some established news outlets running stories about how women in comics are being harassed again. It gives everyone a chance to pat themselves on the back. They write a half-hour little story, include a few Twitter screenshots, and then they get the clicks. And it's just funny seeing how repetitive and predictable this outrage machine has become, because lo and behold, the next day, even the Telegraph was writing a story about comic book Twitter drama.
Yep. That was a thing. I noticed that how fast the media picked this up, the comic book websites, and as well as even the mainstream media picked this up. And that rang very suspicious to me. Like, they immediately turned it into a big controversy where, if it's just a few trolls on Twitter, a few people that are unhappy with you, it's not really news, but they made it into news. So
it's also because you tend to find with journalists, they have a pre-established narrative ready. It is a matter of just filling in the boxes. So when it comes to woman harassed online, they have that template there. You scratch out Anita Sarkeesian and you put in, is her name Antos or something? You put her name in. You just hit send to publisher, done. And I mean, the big question is really, when we go back to it, how much power do these assistant editors have within Marvel? How much power do they have over the actual production of the comic books as they hit the shelves? Is it these people where we have to listen and believe women when they tell us that their stories, and especially when they say that this will produce better sales, when there's no evidence for that whatsoever?
Evidence is sexist, though. Come on, man. You should know better.
True. Statistics are a tool of the patriarchy.
Hey, I hear that all the time, man. I really do.
I want to take a moment to welcome Capn Cummings to the call. I brought him in. Hello, sir. I noticed that I brought you in mainly because you remind me of my honey badger buddy, Dr. Ranimer Cam. No particular reason. So, welcome to the call, Capn Cummings.
Thank you for letting me join. I always love crashing the party, and I get that all the time.
I'm not saying you stole his look, but Dr. Ranimer Cam called. No, but so tell us, what are your thoughts on this Make My Milkshake? I'm going around and getting people's opinions on it. I think that this is a pretty interesting conversation. Is this the new Gamergate? What do you think?
I mean, I think that the journalism, especially with comics books, is worse than it is for gaming. Because you outright see, people like Tom Brevoort, who's way up at Marvel, like saying, if you don't, say what we want, basically, we won't give you the exclusives and stuff like that. And I use that in finger quotes. So, I mean, I don't know if, there will be a backlash at some point with fans in this. It might be going on already, with the sales and stuff. I don't know.
Yeah. And you know what? There was something else I just realized. Micah, what's the name of the guy who was writing the Captain America books? I think it was the Captain America books, who in an interview, he basically said, it's all about his politics. Do you know who I'm talking about?
Jason Aaron?
Or are you talking about Nick Spencer?
Nick Spencer. That's the guy I'm talking about. Yeah. So, yeah, what a piece of shit that guy is. Okay. I want to give Diversity in Comics a chance to talk a little bit about Make My Milkshake. I know that you've said quite a bit about it. Is there anything else you wanted to add? Or what? Did I already ask you? I need to ask Aiden. That's who it is.
Yeah, exactly. I think you hit everyone, maybe.
Yeah, we kind of all covered it. I think that, the idea that it's another Gamergate is a little bit... I'm not going to say that's going too far. When it first was happening, I was like, ooh, I could real see this. Because I remember when the Zoe Quinn thing happened. And it being the same sort of thing where it started out with it was just a couple people talking about it. And then it was everybody could not shut up about the Zoe Quinn stuff. Now, I think that it was a little different because I'm not going to say to what extent, but there did appear to be quite a number of people who were actually maybe, if not harassing Zoe Quinn, then at least being like, you fucked 5 guys, you whore. I mean, you know, at least that actually appeared to happen. With this one, it was completely created. There was nothing that fucking happened.
Yeah, I think they're trying to manufacture this stuff. That's why I was asking about whether or not it's bait, because it feels artificial. But it's obvious. Like and then DC following and doing their own sort of like, you know, I don't know if they were trying to outdo Marvel. Well, obviously it looks like they were, but like they were doing the same thing in an effort to virtue signal on what Marvel had done. And I'm like, do you guys really think this is going to help you sell books, or is it just going to make you look petty? You know?
Oh, bro, don't even get me started on DC and their goddamn virtue signaling. What was it today where they were sitting there and they introduced the new Legends of Tomorrow character called Isis. And
what?
Oh my God!
Muslim character just to spite Trump, and I'm sitting there going, no, don't do that. Legends of Tomorrow is great, campy fun. It's something you sit there and switch off with. Don't fucking do that to me.
I don't even know what that is. Is that a joke? It's so bizarre the way the character's designed, the name. What are you doing?
She came around, if I remember correctly, right after Infinite Crisis. They did this whole thing where Black Adam, the Captain Marvel villain, had his own Marvel family, and then they all got fucking killed. And I saw that, and I saw her, and I'm like, no, don't do it, because people are gonna fucking roast you guys.
I'm surprised Marvel's not brought up. Who's the mutant who wears the niqab?
Is Dust. Yeah, that's right, Dust.
Yes, because that's not culturally insensitive. I'm surprised they haven't brought her up and made her a huge thing. I guess they just had to invent Kamala Khan.
Doesn't she literally turn into sand? That was her mutant power. She was basically like Sandman, but... Well, I'm not going to go there. But yeah, I remember that.
There are so many jokes you can make.
You know what? I didn't mind that sand character, maybe because the virtue signaling wasn't as bad back then. But I thought, well, that's interesting. Although, and it's funny because she's literally not wearing a costume, but she is wearing a costume.
Yeah.
She's yeah. Is she ever going to get like a yellow and blue version of that, like as the X-Men uniform? You know, whenever they do the matching uniforms, I wonder if they'll ever do that with.
Well,
Sam.
that's what I was saying. I was like, you know, if you're going to have her like that, make it kind of superhero-y. It was just a generic niqab, and it kind of really stood out.
Unless she's in Saudi Arabia, then she can blend into a crowd.
Yeah. So the thing about the Muslim hero named Isis and how that was unfortunate timing. It just reminded me when I was a kid and my mom had the early '80s, and my mom had this diet pill, and it was called AIDS, and it would make you just all the pounds would just come straight off of you. And then whenever that came out in the news, I just always used to remember their slogan. They're like, the pounds will just fall off. I was like, it's just so unfortunate. But I'm a big fan of all the Mark Guggenheim books, and I kind of feel like this thing he's definitely virtue signaling, but I think in the shows there's gonna be like one or two. The shows sometimes have these little zings, but they're very soft. I mean, if you would compare it to comic books, the way he writes a political comic is like the way they did it like 4 or 5 years ago. Like it still has a solid. I actually just right now was listening to Micah's review of the latest X-Men Gold, and X-Men Gold is like pretty solid. There's a couple little things where you're just like, really, dude? But I mean, when you compare it to the other books right now, it's like gold. My only issue with X-Men Gold is the a terrible pun. Anyway, is the thing they did to Kitty Pryde. Kitty Pryde is now like a 1980s Romanian bodybuilder, and it's really, really weird. It came out of nowhere, and I've seen 3 artists draw her the exact same way. So it's not just, artistic license for one person. She's purposefully being drawn like that out of nowhere. Again, another hyper-masculine woman. When Kitty's whole thing was that she was the girl next door. Throughout her history, she was the girly girl that everyone knows.
Well, I got a question about that real quick. Do you think that she's being copied by somebody that works at Marvel, since that's happening a lot?
Well, I mean, it's so exact, and especially since they're copying a design created by a disgraced and fired artist, that it's just odd. You know, Colossus will not be drawn exactly the same from artist to artist, but this new hyper-masculine Kitty Pryde is drawn exactly the same by 3 different artists with fairly different styles. Too much of a coincidence for me.
We lost somebody. We lost Aiden. Aiden, come back. She probably just dropped connection. Well, shit. Well, I was gonna ask another question. I got distracted by the fact that we lost Aiden. Oh yeah, let's talk a little bit about DC Comics since we did bring it up, and I don't want to just spend all this time picking on Marvel because DC's not innocent either. Do you, any of you guys have any DC books that you had noticed has a lot of this stuff in it too? Because I don't think they're innocent.
Yes, yes. They had a Wonder Woman 26, which had some of the most insane virtue signaling and just what would I call it? Counter reality ideas I've ever seen. Wonder Woman goes to a Syrian refugee camp, and a white blonde guy is the one assaulting the Muslims inside their camp. We then get the most recent issue of Green Arrow, where Ollie is apologizing to Wonder Woman for making a pass at her one time, and she actually apparently broke his jaw or almost broke it, merely for making a pass at her. So I wasn't crazy about the Greg Rucka run, but from what I've seen, he seemed to be keeping the crazies at bay, and now she's becoming, you know, a full SJW character.
See, the thing with that, though, do you reckon it's because it's Wonder Woman? I mean, the film got applauded, everyone seemed to love it, but let's not forget the fact that the social justice warriors called for Wonder Woman to be removed from being the women's ambassador because of how she's been drawn previously. So it wouldn't surprise me if they're pushing Wonder Woman towards the social justice side just to keep the fire off their backs.
Yeah, well, Wonder Woman's always had a problem of being basically semi-hijacked ever since the 70s. She's basically a mainstream hero. She was for her first 20 years, and then she got semi-hijacked by some extremists, and she's always being pulled in these 2 directions: the very masculine, very angry, and then the ambassador of peace. I thought the movie was great, and they got the classic mainstream version of her that people like, and they were rewarded for it. This weirdo, angry, and just like we were talking about, the comics have their power, and Micah made a great reference to it. These comics get their power from having analogies and allegories to the real world, but it's not a real world problem that blonde-haired white guys are going into refugee camps and assaulting women. The problem is it's people who came along with them and separating the good people from the bad people. You do some kind of allegory. It doesn't even have to be Muslims. It doesn't have to be refugees. It can be space aliens, and it'll have some power. But when you refer to a fake world, like, you know, the House of Representatives is going to vote to deport, you can't even, like, deporting citizens, that's not even a thing. Mm-hmm. It takes all the wind out of it. Now, if you would have said we're going to deport just the X-Men who aren't citizens, like, I don't know if Colossus has American citizenship, then it would have a lot of weight. But they constantly need to overplay their hand because
they overshoot it.
JWs always double down. So it can't be a reasonable allegory. It has to be, Trump's going to kick every brown person out of the country. It's like, okay, logistically even, how would that happen?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the Savage Dragon,
It's funny.
because
It kind of did kick all of the X-Men out at one point with Genosha. That sort of actually happened, but that was sort of like partially their choice as well.
Yeah.
So like, yeah, you already have kind of this metaphor that you could have done a little bit better.
Okay,
Mike.
Micah.
I was just going to say, if they wanted to make it a real-world allegory, it would have been people from the Clinton Foundation getting up to hijinks in Haiti, but, you know.
Yes.
Okay, Micah, you were going to say something about that.
Well, I was going to say, it's like, yeah, the Savage Dragon was kind of doing something similar. It's like they blatantly had Donald Trump himself pointing at the Savage Dragon's half-black son and his wife running away from a giant crowd of white people.
Oh,
and I'm like, Eric Larson, I understand that you were never that talented, but come on. I'm sorry, I don't like Eric Larson.
He should just
he's the worst Venom artist ever.
Yeah, he should just stick to drawing Knuckles.
Basically, his art is so bad. He once drew a version of the Savage Dragon that is all torso and like toothpicks for legs. It's like, God, he didn't just skip leg day once. He just skipped it more and more. But yeah, I mean, DC isn't away from this either. I thought that even though some people tell me that they're good characters, I thought the introduction of Simon Baz and Jessica Cruz were a little much.
Ooh, that's when DC was floundering. That was like the beginning. That's what I started out with. Is that like right around when New 52 started? So that's been a while now. It's like they were flirting with this SJW shit a little bit more.
Yeah.
And they were kind of floating it out there. Let's see. Oh, how's this working? But
is that the time
DC,
that is that around the time that I think it was Batgirl's roommate came out as trans or something like that?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. It was all the same, and it was Simon Baz, the Muslim.
The Muslim Green Lantern with a gun.
I'm like, oh my God.
And then the girl spends a year triggered in her apartment. I'm like, what the fuck?
The gun thing was so funny. It's like, I mean, I thought Howard Jordan had like no imagination with the willpower ring to just make a big fist. You made a gun, man. Whereas,
I know. I might as well give him like a bomb pack or something like that. Make the stereotype even worse.
Can you make a giant a truck of peace?
Oh God! The instant he makes a truck construct, I'm gonna lose it. So tasteless.
Well, Simon Baz had one of the most cringy introductions because he was stealing a car with a WMD in the trunk, and when the FBI, I'm not making this up, and when the FBI pulled him over, he started basically pulling the Islamophobia card. It's like, what? Just because I'm a Muslim man in a stolen car with a bomb in the trunk? So he didn't know about the bomb in the trunk, but it was like, really, guys? Really? Shame on you. And it was just like, are you serious? But you guys were saying, DC and Micah was, I'm in the Micah fan club today, but he was saying that DC has a light touch on social media, but they seem to listen. Marvel is very heavy, and they do not listen at all. I've noticed this. And the marvel of not listening, it's not coincidence. There is no give ever. I got blocked by dozens by just saying, what if you didn't talk about Trump for one day? What if you didn't push the politics as hard as... And the thing is, I got the same exact answer, almost word for word. This stuff is being disseminated. I know I've got, not to be like cheesy, but I've got insiders of both companies, and the corporate philosophy for both is stark. DC will tell people, chill out. We're a company. We're selling hot dogs. Stop telling people there's chicken beaks in the hot dog, Whereas Marvel is very much like, we hate the fans. We're all going to say this. They make this allegory to Secret Empire, a story from the 1970s. It's the worst explanation I've ever heard about why their books are so bad now. But I mean, they repeat it word for word. They're being fed this.
What I find really, I'm wondering what that is because the Marvel, first of all, they got bought by Disney, so they've got the financial backing. But Disney is not Marvel.
Yeah.
Disney's a company, and they're real quick, I think, about to stop it. Once Marvel starts to really flounder, and it becomes, because it already, I don't think they're very economically profitable right now. No. Obviously not, because of the way their books are selling. It's the worst I've seen. I mean, this has got to be the worst they've done since the 90s.
Oh, it's
and this is with overships. They're hiding their bad sales with overships because the numbers say 200,000 of X, but then I get these emails from shop owners, and they say, I've canceled entire titles. I'm not being billed, and I'm not paying for them, but I still get 10 of them every month. I was briefly tangentially in publishing. One of my first IT jobs was for a newspaper publisher. And I think what they're doing is all publishing is declining. We are declining less. Therefore, we are doing a good job. And they're pushing these people you know, pushing this up to Disney. That's the only way these people can have kept their jobs for so long. But I think they're realizing the jig is up. That's why when I see things like Las Vegas was wiped off the map in Secret Empire, this doesn't seem like something you would do to a world you're still going to be playing in a year or two. I think these people think they're either going to be out or they've got basically a rebirth plan where they're going to reset everything to really save their jobs.
Not to mention they ripped that off of Invincible.
And the pit from the new universe in the 80s, they destroyed Pittsburgh and it became a big radioactive pit.
I remember the new universe.
Oh, that was so good in Invincible. I forgot about what's his name? The dinosaur guy blowing up Vegas. That was great.
Yeah, Dinosaurus. Yeah.
Wow.
You wouldn't think that a character called Dinosaurus would end up having a really interesting character arc, but Robert Kirkman being amazing.
You know, Kirkman, like he can write something for just about 100 issues, and then he loses the plot. I think.
Yeah, but I do think he's probably the best character writer and dialogue writer I have seen since like David Michelini back in the 90s. Like
Kirkman's good. I'm a fan.
Yeah, he's great.
All right. Well, okay, so we were talking about this whole the idea of Gamergate 2.0, and there are different opinions on this, but there's something that I noticed. I was involved with Gamergate from the beginning. I saw it like when I watched it unfold. I was very involved at Honey Badger Radio. The reason why we got kicked out of Calgary Expo was because we were supporting Gamergate. By the way, that court battle will be settled in November. I think we're going to win. Allison is very cautious on that, but they don't have much of a case against us. Anyway, so
we're rooting for you, man. Trust me.
Well, thank you. One of the things that I noticed during Gamergate, especially later, was there was a split within Gamergate. There was a divide that was forming. And mainly what it was depending on, like, there were people that were trying to figure out what Gamergate should focus on. There was a camp, and there are probably more camps in this, but I'm going to focus on the two main ones that I saw. One camp was, we have to just focus on just the ethics and just basically like getting the journalists to correct their behavior and essentially realize that they work for us. And then there was the side that was basically like, this is not the cause, this is a symptom of something bigger, which is social justice ideology, and that has to be fought in some way. And I think that what we're seeing in all other areas, it's not just in video games, which obviously it's still in video games. I mean, now you can play, black Nazi women in the new, Call of Duty. And I think that actually Anita Sarkeesian was actually involved with that decision. She was actually involved at that level. But we're not seeing it just there. Obviously, you're seeing it, it's like doubling down, as Diversity points out. You're seeing this in film, you're seeing this in the Hollywood sort of culture itself. You're seeing it in video games. You're seeing it in comics. You're seeing it in tabletop gaming and like all kinds of like hobbies that were essentially, like the domain of mostly, men and like, well, nerdy men and nerdy women. So it's sort of like infecting everything in a lot of ways.
Yeah, and it's upsetting to me as someone who's been. Maybe not upsetting, but disturbing or disconcerting. As someone who's been, like, this is what I hear all the time, is from these women, they act like they're so unwelcome in these communities. And, honey, I've been doing this my whole life. And it's not just comics. It's tabletop games, it's Magic the Gathering and D&D and all that kind of stuff. I've been doing that for forever. People, the guys who are all into this, they're like, so excited that, oh, a girl is interested in our thing. But now I think that's going to change. Because that's how it was, I'm going to say 2008, 2006. Now there's this fear that these women are getting into this just to take it over so they can bitch about feminism.
Well, there are women that are, and some men too, that are getting involved with something that they don't have an interest in and they want to change everything. So they come into the hobby and they're like, oh yeah, I'm totally into comics, guys. Seriously, I like watched the new Spider-Man where he like fights Two-Face. It was great. And then they go in and they get into positions of some influence within the industry, and then they want to change the drapes, and they want to change the carpets, and they want to repaint everything. So, of course, it makes the people who have essentially built the industry with their dollars, because the thing about comics is it's huge now as a cultural influence because of these humongous blockbuster movies that are coming out every year. So when you see these massive you know, increases in interest in this whole comic book genre, thanks to the Marvel universe, and now the DC cinematic universe is coming, and all the stuff that's on television and all the stuff that's on Netflix and everything, then of course you get people that are looking at this and they're like, I want to be a part of that, but they don't know anything about it. But then they want to bring their sort of their politics, their sensibilities, their feels into it, and they want to alter it to fit with their, you know, to fit their sensibilities. And of course, the nerds that have basically spent so much money and time and, you know, energy into their passion, into this interest, are going to become protective because they don't want it to change. I mean, there are people expressing concerns, and I'm one of them, that even the Marvel Cinematic Universe, which I think has been pretty solid, if not fantastic, for most of its run, is going to start heading down that road. And I'm expecting that either Black Panther or Captain Marvel is going to be when you see the serious shift. I mean, even Spider-Man Homecoming had some slightly cringy bits, but, you know, this is something I think that is a genuine concern, but unfortunately, people are going to they're going to essentially cry it's sexism, it's racism, it's whatever, and they're not actually going to consider that these people have a point.
Yeah.
And that what that brings about for me is that, is this something that we deal with? I mean, if we can, we may just have to endure it. But is this something that you do by fighting the ideology itself, or at least trying to keep it in check? Or is it something that you simply focus on what is achievable, like not spending money on the shit that you don't want?
I think that it's possible for both to be correct. I mean, I think that it all depends on how you do it. The big problem that I see online is that people, you know, and I get asked this sometimes too by people who watch my stuff, is they ask me, you know, how do you fight this? And what I always say is the last thing you want to do is become a hammer in want of a nail. Because if you become a hammer in want of the nail, you will hit everything, no matter what. And you'll hit it with the same kind of force and furiosity. The thing about this is that sometimes you'll hit a hammer and you'll hit a nail and it's perfect and it's great and you do the right thing. And then you'll hit a kitten the next time you do it, you know, and then you end up looking like an ass. It's a much better idea to think about what you're doing and what you're saying. Just learn about why this is wrong. Learn about why this caused problems. And then, you know, unless you want to become a content creator like we have, then just talk to your friend. Like if your friends are going down that path, just talk and be like, hey, you know, that's really, you know, no, men aren't some giant cabal that's looking to rule the world, you know, so on and so forth. As opposed, you know, and on top of that, I think that the more that people start to understand why this bullshit is bullshit, the less, you know, these people are going to, you know, start making money. And then, like, goes back to what I said earlier, they're going to have to face the economic realities of, oh shit, what we're doing is not going to make me a living, and I'm stuck in an apartment with 5 roommates, as Diversity in Comics said earlier.
I agree. One thing that I think we need to point out as it refers to Gamergate is that with a lot of these people, someone like Anita Sarkeesian, her job is to be a professional victim. That's how she makes her money. Now, being a professional victim is only a profitable job so long as anyone pays any fucking attention to you. So, and it's difficult because as content creators, well, part of what we do is report on stuff that we see, correct? And have to like, hey, look at this thing that's happening. This is messed up. So there's that desire to do that. But at the same time, if you don't, vote with your wallet, don't buy it. One. And yes, encourage others, encourage your friends. And if you're not a content creator, encourage your friends. And as hard as it is, if you ignore them, I think they'll just destroy themselves because nobody's buying it. And like, you know, the 5 of us, 6 of us here who put money into this industry, if we vote with our wallets, what are they going to be able to do beyond just implode?
Yeah. Anybody else want to add anything?
I was just going to say, Cap, Diversity, you guys got anything you want to add before I jump in with my bit?
Diversity, Captain, you guys want to add anything?
No. Well, I think about the one thing I got is the one thing with Anita is she's so good of a showman to the people that she, you know, shills to, you know, and
yeah. But if you want to freak her out, just sit in the front row and don't do anything.
Well, and it's funny because that probably plays into the people that you know, are her fans or what. I don't know who's an Anita fan, but
Jonathan McIntosh.
Does anyone actually? Oh, isn't he out though? He's out.
Yeah,
That's
but
not
that
out.
doesn't
He's
mean
not
mean he's not pining for her secretly.
Oh
No,
yes,
but
I'm sure.
yeah, I might have had a little something to do with that. With the info that I gave Milo Yiannopoulos a couple years ago.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I was the one. I was the one who fed Breitbart the information about him hating Israel. I dug into. I was able to link him into BDS, so that ended up. I wrote an article for Truth or Revolt, and then I gave all my research to Milo, and he took it even further. So, oops.
Okay. So yeah, Captain, you were saying, or are you done?
I don't remember.
Oh, okay. You were talking about Anita and stuff, but okay. Well, you know what? Oh shit. You know what? I could not find her fucking name. So they cast Squirrel Girl. Have you guys seen this? They're going to be doing a show. I don't know where it's going to be or whatever, but they're doing a show for the. I guess it's the team that she's on. Is it the Great Lakes Avengers or something? Or
Yes, which is awesome.
Yeah. I used to love Squirrel Girl.
Me too.
Yeah, but
It was hilarious.
they cast her, but the girl they cast for her is super fucking hot. So I wonder if people are going to lose their shit because they cast an extremely attractive, curvy, large-breasted woman to play Squirrel Girl. Now I don't remember her name, but you might know her from I think there were like these AT&T commercials, and she was like an employee that worked there. Ah, shit, I can't remember. Oh, Melania Vantrub, and her name is Melania Vantrub. You can look her up. I'll write down the name in here so you guys could see.
Oh wow, she's cute as shit. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's supposed to be the person playing Squirrel Girl. So it seems like, at least in the film and television market, Marvel is not basing, like, they're not basing their work on what is in the comics. They're still going with some kind of classic look. I imagine that it'll actually be like the Squirrel Girl from like the 1980s, and maybe she was around in the 90s, where she had like the wasp bob haircut and the weird clown makeup on her face. Maybe, I don't know. So,
Yeah.
Probably.
Go ahead, Diversity.
Oh, thanks. So yeah, so I did. I've got a couple of like go-tos for my channel when I need some shekels, and I know people will hate watch anything with the current version of Squirrel Girl, Captain Marvel, or America. But so it's the team she's actually in is the New Warriors. So it's
the New Warriors
TV
okay.
show. Yeah, and it's on Freeform, which used to be ABC Family. But the funny thing is that I did a video where basically I had a title. It's like, oh, they're going to go crazy about this. And the funny thing is that SJW Twitter just basically just completely ignored that it happened. But then 2 weeks later, Erica Henderson got an award for the current version of Squirrel Girl that is it's male gaze proof. They're weird gender and body issue type of thing. So they doubled down. They always double down. I actually didn't hear about these rules until I think Aiden mentioned them a couple of times. But yeah, so they doubled down by rewarding a poorly selling book with ugly art that has the version they like. But yeah, so it's just like, it looks like it's going to be a small show. There's also a Cloak and Dagger show coming out, but I'm excited. I love the New Warriors. That was a great book back in the 90s.
Yeah,
Whoa,
like
they're
the New
doing
Warriors
Cloak and
too.
Dagger? I've been begging for that. Oh man, I'm so far out of the loop on that.
Yeah, but
That'll be cool.
it will be. But I think that I guess I saw the trailer for Cloak and Dagger. It looks very. It doesn't.
The premise
I'm not
is
seeing
very...
a lot of superhero stuff in it. Let's put it that way. I see a black chick and a white girl hanging out. That's what I saw in the trailer. You know, and the black guy. I'm sorry, I got it backwards. It's a black guy and a white girl hanging out.
A big black dude and his little white girlfriend, kind of.
Yeah. Well,
Cloak and Dagger have been interesting, but that's another example of that. They've been around for forever.
Cloak's wearing a hoodie in it, but that's where the similarities end. Okay. So I'm not expecting. It's on like some kind of special like channel that you have to watch it on. Let me see if I can find out for you guys. Hold on.
I think it also might be on Freeform.
Yeah.
Yeah, Freeform is where it is. That's where it is. And the same thing goes for this New Warriors. It's going to be in the same place. So
between that Cloak and Dagger and the Spider-Man movie and a Venom movie, there better be a fucking Maximum Carnage movie at some point. Damn it!
At this rate, we're going to get this market's going to get so saturated.
See,
they got Tom Hardy as Venom, so
I know. I'm so psyched about that.
That's
all I'm saying
great.
is,
That's fantastic.
if Tom Hardy brings the same performance he gave in Bronson, he's gonna fucking smash it.
Oh,
but
fuck yes.
just touching quickly upon like the Squirrel Girl stuff and that, it doesn't surprise me that they cast a traditionally hot girl to play the role of Squirrel Girl. And this is the thing with a lot of the superhero properties that we see in the cinematic universes and on TV. The producers on that know what sale. I mean, for example, the biggest grossing movie of all time at the moment is Fate of the Furious. You know, so you're going to have these TV execs, these film execs looking at Fate of the Furious going, what did that do well? And they're going to try and replicate certain things. And yeah, it was a heroic action movie. And again, the cinematic universes and stuff like that, this is where it gets to that issue of mass production. You got to be able to satisfy as many audiences as possible. So there will be little bits of social justice in it. It's almost unavoidable at this point. And the social justice stuff in Spider-Man wasn't too bad. I didn't mind it. It didn't seem to fully detract from the overall series. And I mean, for example, the DC are launching that new Black Lightning show. That looks fucking brilliant. I am hyped for that.
Yeah.
Sorry. The issue becomes where you're going to have these new fans, you know, people who watch The Defenders. And okay, let's not talk about Iron Fist. That was terrible. But new fans going, okay, do you know what? I like that show. I like that film. Let me get into the comics. And if you like The Defenders and you pick up the Defenders comic, you're just going to look at it and go...
Yeah, Diversity in Comics, you did a good video on this where it was like, and I mentioned it as well, said, what is it like if you watch all of these TV shows and movies and all this stuff that has become so mainstream and everyone knows it, and you go to the comic shop? I mean, I was seeing this issue in 2008, which is like, when did Iron Man come out in 2008? When I was first getting into comics. Yeah. It's like, already there's a huge disconnect. Now, yeah, you go to the store and you to the LCS, and already you have to go out of your comfort zone to go to a comic shop because they tend to be weird little nerd hovels. Yep. And what are you gonna find on the shelf, man? It's gonna be Riri Williams. It's not Tony Stark. I mean, and I already, like, that's why I do panels on it. Is like, I do this entire panel at conventions. I've been doing it now for 6 years, and it's just, here's how you get into comics without knowing anything but the films, or just like kind of a primer for that. Man, I'm still going to be recommending you old shit now. I can't recommend you new stuff. I can't recommend you anything current, really. Well, a couple of examples, but not really. That's got to be very confusing, I would imagine. Unless you've got a great LCS owner. The guy who owns the shop is like, let me walk you through it. Let me throw some trades on you, and you take these.
Yeah.
Well,
you're not going to find any floppies.
There's this thing that I've been noticing, because I think I forget who I copied this from. Everything I do, I just copied from somewhere else. But asking like a couple of questions at the end of every video for the comments. And one of the things that I'm shocked by, because I always just thought comics are dead, comics are dying, and there aren't a lot of fans. There is a huge, huge audience that wants to come to comics. And they're just waiting for comics to actually want them. Because this is actively pushing it away. It's the thing of, like, you know, the kid in junior high who never showers and just reads manga all day and doesn't talk to people. He goes, why do I have no friends? Well, you got a whole high school of people that are willing to be your friend if you actually want to be a friend to them. Marvel is actively pushing people away. The funny thing is that, like you said, the licensed versions, the movies versions, are the versions people want to see. Riri Williams is not on any of the barely any of them. Some people have shown me she's popped up in a couple of the video games, but it's like puzzle games. It's the smaller games, the side games. When they have this bigger game, they have Captain Marvel, Carol Danvers, and they make her pretty. They have her feminine because that's what normal people want. These little niche industry problems of scaring people away. Once it gets to be real money, then they go for stuff that people actually like.
Yeah.
It's also bizarre to me that there's this concept that women hate like sexy female characters. Like, that's not also a sort of attractive thing for women. I don't get that at all. I mean, like, I loved Corey and Storm when I was a kid. Like, that's two very sexualized costumes.
Well, the funny thing is that.
Oh, sorry.
Well, no, it's okay. I'll let you. I'll give it back to you right after I'm done. The funny thing is that from what I noticed, the way that, in general, not in every case, obviously, hashtag not all. If when men read, or when males read comics or books or whatever, they usually read them from an outside perspective, like as a third-person viewer that's experiencing what's happening. When females read books and comics and stories, they usually tend to project themselves onto a character that they like. They put themselves in the shoes of them. This is why when you read romance comics, the female characters in romance comics, or I'm sorry, not romance comics, romance novels, like the Harlequin romance novels, they're always written in a way that is extremely sort of flat and dull. Not that the characters are written poorly, but there's nothing really that stands out in terms of personality, so that the woman who's reading the book can just pretend that it's her. She projects herself onto the story. That's
50 Shades.
It's
exactly what 50 Shades is.
It's exactly what 50 Shades is. It's what Twilight is. It's what basically every Harlequin romance novel is. The women's always have the same personality, and it's kind of like the negative traits are the kinds of traits that most women tend to believe about themselves. Like, oh, I'm a little bit clumsy and a little bit awkward, and, you know, I'm not perfect, but I look all right, you know, that kind of thing. That's basically just a tool to help those women get into it. And I think that when they read a media outside of that, even if it doesn't do that, they want to see themselves in the female they're reading. So if the woman is sexy and they like them, then they kind of think of themselves that way. It's like seeing the best about you. It's idealized on purpose.
So even for women, what woman wants to be a bitch like, Mockingbird, like Bobby Morris, you know?
Or Carol Danvers.
Or Carol Danvers. Or
it's really funny because while listening
or America.
For a second, while listening to you for a second, my wife loves the 50 Shades of Grey stuff. She watches both the movies all the time. But, like, I showed her Carol Danvers, and Carol Danvers is her, like, the short blonde hair, you know, looks just like her. And when I showed it to her, you know, Carol Danvers always has this, like, somebody cropped us at her face. You know, this real nasty
the Anita Sarkeesian, I would call it the shit-sniffing face. Always just looking like you're perpetually smelling a turd. Yeah.
And so I showed her this, the picture of her, and she's like, well, why did they make her look like a man? You know, and she doesn't look like a man. She looks like a woman. But, you know, they're trying to market this character to people like my wife, and she's like, I don't want that. I want, you know, 50 Shades of Grey. Mm-hmm. You know, and I think that's why, you know, I don't know if this is going to translate to the movies like you were talking about earlier, but there's a big chance, especially with how convoluted Carol Danvers' history is, you know, with Avengers 200, and, you know, you take all that stuff throughout her history, they have to, honestly, to make a movie about her, kind of just scrap all that and just do something else, in my opinion. Yeah, so who knows what's going to happen?
The screenwriters actually said that. They basically said, we basically had to create a completely new story. They're going to hit a couple bullet points.
Like she'll be in the Air Force or something. But it's actually, it looks like the movie is a period piece from the 90s. You know, the relativistic speed. She's been, you know, traveling at whatever, so she can come back and still be young. But yeah, there's a nothing there. I always describe her as the plumber van superhero, and that's what they always write her as: generic superhero with generic superhero powers. I'm really curious about if this Captain Marvel movie is going to do good, because I don't think there's anything there that you can really base something around.
Yeah,
that's always been my issue with Carol, is that she doesn't have, at least even when people seem to want to write her, it's like they just can't find a character in there. And in terms of her backstory, that has to be totally rewritten because it's so convoluted. There's no, you can't do the real thing.
Well, how do you write her backstory without bringing in Marvel?
And they're not going to do that.
They should though. That you know what? If they did, I think that would be great because Marvel, he's the one guy. I actually used to really like him, even the 70s with the fucking the windswept hair or whatever. But him dying of cancer was such an important moment in Marvel's history. It's like Gwen Stacy getting killed, right? That was like a turning point in the Marvel comics. Yeah. Captain Marvel, the Marvel version, him dying of cancer was so important that it's like the one thing I love about Captain Marvel is the fact that he never came back. And I hope he doesn't, because him dying of cancer it would just throw that away. So if they wanted
weirdness,
if they wanted to do the Captain Marvel movie justice, I think they should start with Marvel, and then they can get like some old, like, kind of like high profile actor to play him in like the end of his life or whatever, and him sort of passing the torch. I think that'd be freaking cool if they could do that some way.
Death of Captain Marvel movie would be amazing. Cast Brad Pitt as Marvel, and then keep Josh Brolin as Thanos, and just adapt the comic, because the comic is brilliant.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Jim Starlin. I don't care what other people. He's a god, in my opinion. And the Thanos quest. I mean, Infinity Gauntlet. I
love Starlin. I think Earth's Mightiest Heroes, which was the cartoon that came out.
I love that cartoon.
Yes,
I loved it.
Me too. That one did a good job of handling Carol and Marvel.
Mm-hmm.
If you did it something like that, I always think a lot of times the cartoons, I don't know why this is, like, they're really good at being, how do we condense this to make sense to children, which really should be kind of how you look at writing it.
Yeah. I mean, why is it people still pine for writing DC characters, and the gold standard is essentially Justice League. Like the old Justice League cartoon show, and like the Batman, the Batman show and shit.
Sure,
because Bruce Timm and Paul Dini just fucking nailed it, and they did it in a way that was appealing to younger people, and it was actually better, and nobody can capture that, or at least
it's just because they did a good job of condensing some of the more convoluted comic book stories.
Yeah,
and a lot of cartoons have done a good job at that as well, and a lot of DC. I would say this because I have a really big beef. Now, I still have not seen Wonder Woman, so I can't say shit. But I hate the DC cinematic universe so much.
Preach!
Well, I know, it's trash. But Wonder Woman is the best of them. But honestly, the bar was pretty fucking low, so...
They can make animated movies pretty well.
I watched Wonder Woman stoned off my gourd in a lovely theatre in Amsterdam. That's one of the reasons why it was so fucking good to me.
Okay.
I remember watching Batman versus Superman drunk.
Oh, that movie pissed me off.
I just got up like 20 minutes, and I was like, I felt like I was watching CNN, so I just like turned it off.
Martha. I love Superman. I do. And I'm blown away that the best Superman movie is still the Christopher Reeve one from like the 70s.
Because it's fantastic. It's that's the thing. That's the fucking thing. I love Superman, okay? I'm a really big Superman fan. I know that for people, and I would say this, Mort, people who are not big comic book readers, they don't understand why I like Superman.
Mm-hmm.
Why I love Superman for probably the same reason you like Captain America so much. I like what Superman represents. I'm not a big Batman fan because Superman is everything that Batman is not, and vice versa. Whereas with Superman, the whole idea is that Clark Kent, this person that he is not because he's not a human, even though he was raised this way, that's who he really is. That's who he wants to be. He values humanity so much. Oh, I love that. I love that, where he has to be Kal-El. He has to be Superman because he has to. So the world doesn't blow up every week.
Yeah.
The very basic idea of Superman I find to be incredibly attractive. And so the Christopher Reeve version is fantastic. And Zack Snyder making him into literal Jesus. Oh, I want to be dead.
Yeah, Man of Steel was a pain in the ass. But,
Superman Returns was worse, though.
Oh no, Superman Returns was.
Oh yeah, sure.
That was like
I would say it's worse.
That should have been better. I wanted it to be a lot better. I wasn't crazy about the casting of Brandon Routh. He looked a little too soft for my taste. But when I saw it, I was pissed. I did not like Superman Returns.
Oh, I got a great story about that. And say I was in college when that came out. I was studying it at my educational background is Christian theology, actually, and. I'm studying in a Christian school, and I'm telling all of my friends, I'm like, dude, this is going to be Super Jesus. This is not going to be Superman. I'm like, it's going to be terrible. Kevin Spacey's going to be great, and you're all going to hate it when you come back. And all my friends are like, oh, no, it's going to be great. It's going to be great. They go to the movie theater in town. They come back. They're all sullen. I'm like, it was Super Jesus, wasn't it? And they're like, yeah.
Yeah. Well,
man, I thought because the trailers were good, so the trailers like made it look like maybe it was gonna be. By this I mean Zack Snyder's Man of Steel. I thought maybe it'll be okay. I went in costume. I was all, and it's just every like ounce of hope and happiness just drained out of my body and onto the floor, and then I just started drinking heavily in the theater to make up for it.
So since we're talking about movies, I want to go back to something that I brought up before in the beginning of the stream when we talked about. I mentioned the Fantastic Four briefly, and I have a theory. It's a bit of a stretch, I admit, but this is what I'm thinking. So let me know if I'm way off base or if maybe you thought about this too. I wondered why nobody, well, 20th Century, no, is it 20th Century Fox? Yeah, 20th Century Fox has the rights to the Fantastic Four movie. So basically I'm putting this squarely on them. Why is it they couldn't get that right? And why is it they've been able to get X-Men more or less all right? I mean, there have been some movies that are not that great, but basically they do well enough that it became a successful franchise. It makes some money, and people, you know, they were able to make spin-offs like Wolverine movies and like the Deadpool stuff. So
It's real simple.
This is what I was thinking. So I'm going to put my ideas out there. Fantastic Four should work. It is a very simple premise. It is essentially the Marvel's first family, right?
Yes.
I think the difference is in the way that folks in the culture of Hollywood and 20th Century Fox view the idea of family. And maybe it's because I think that Hollywood is pretty obsessed with identity politics to some degree, that they haven't been able to grasp that idea. There's something about it that I think they find repulsive, because you're looking at a family of white people and their Jewish friend, and they all get superpowers in outer space, and they fight against gigantic galactic, or at least world-threatening, enemies, right? The X-Men is also kind of a family too, and it's actually written as a family story, but the X-Men are more sort of bohemian because no one's really related, and they all live in this school, and, you know, there are love triangles and stuff like that. It's just a different feeling. It's a little bit less traditional family, and it's more like a broadened definition of family, where it's like, oh, it's sort of like the Fast and the Furious definition. Family. Yeah, I wonder if the thing about Fantastic Four is that it's too sort of straight and clean cut, and there's no, they don't find it interesting enough to write about, because, or at least do well, because when I look at when they try to reboot it with Michael B. Jordan, who is supposedly like an adopted brother or something, and then they have like
Sue's the adopted
oh no,
one.
yeah, you're right, Sue's the adopted one.
Black.
Yeah, Sue's the adopted one. That's right, because the dad is black, so she's the adopted one. I think that's sort of like another way of doing this whole let's broaden the definition of family. Do you guys follow what I'm saying? Because it really bugs me that they haven't been able to get the FF correct, and I think that Marvel, if they got the rights back, they'd probably just play it straight and it'd be fine. Now, I'm not bringing up the Roger Corman version because I've never seen it, which is the old Fantastic Four from the 90s. And I'm also not really bringing up the one with Jessica Alba, just because it just wasn't very good. And I think that they were pretty much lost on how to approach that. So do you guys see what I'm saying? Am I reading into it too much?
Maybe a little bit. I think that the big problem is that they have a tendency to overthink it, or just want to screw with the template a little bit too much. I think that's what both of them did, because I feel like what both of them really fucked up the most was Dr. Doom.
Oh,
they could not get him right, because my introduction to Dr. Doom was when he was voiced by Simon Templeman in the animated series. Mm-hmm. And, you know, there's that class, if you've ever heard Simon Templeman speak.
Yeah, it's so good, man.
Legacy of Kane.
Yes, exactly.
Mm-hmm.
For those in the chat who are younger, yes, Kane was Dr. Doom at one point, but you might be too young to know either. But anyway, yeah. I'm an old man. I hate to say it. But anyway, but they continue to kind of mess with the concept of Dr. Doom a little bit too much, or with them as a whole. Like, they have to link all of them at once. And Fantastic Four is at its best when it's a Monster of the Week show or a Monster of the Week theme. You know, you've got this new conflict every week that is brought about by, I don't know, Ben stumbling into something, or Reed having an experiment that just fucks everything up.
Holy shit! Fantastic Four should be Fringe. That's what they should make it into. It's just a TV show. Make it Fringe.
That would be
with a superhero spin. You're completely correct. That would be way better than trying to do these like just Silver Surfer or Galactus or Doom, which they always do, and it doesn't work. I agree with the cleanliness thing, though, that they're a little bit too clean cut. And I would say this real quick. It's something that I've noticed with comics in general, and I see this not just in comics, but I think the movies are the movies are doing very well because the Marvel movies at least are avoiding this, is that idea of family. The Avengers, even though they're very disconnected, they've got this family thing. Like, for whatever reason, DC does not want to make an all the Robins thing. Or just this, I want that family. I want them to all. I want Alfred to be the granddad, and I want it to be like it could be completely slice of life, the most like shoujo shit ever. I would consume the shit out of that.
So what you're saying is Lego Batman is best Batman movie?
I haven't seen that either, actually, but I'm out of the loop.
I don't want to
have
to watch it.
Seeing the Robins interact with that, and you see this a lot more, particularly DC, with the legacy characters. There was this passing of the torch of this, the Captain Marvel, DC Captain Marvel, and Marvel, DC's always been better about the family stuff. I love that. I love seeing characters interact with each other, and Marvel movies have been really good about creating these character dynamics. And I think, they're a little bit too afraid to do that because they kind of want each character to have their own setup movie, and you can't do that with the Fantastic Four. That it just is not, it would be absurd. It would be ridiculous.
Yeah. All right. Well, same. I mean, if you guys, anybody else has any thoughts on what I was saying, again, I was speculating. I was just thinking about, trying to get into the heads of 20th Century Fox. It could just be that they're just fucking out of touch. But does it Diversity in Comics or Capn Cummings have anything to say?
Yeah, I think that the major problem is, and I'm kind of famous for having bad taste in movies. I actually liked them all okay. Is that it's a dated concept. It was about the space race. It was about the nuclear arms race, and there's no real equivalent to that where you really it feels important, and it's a good allegory to modern times. X-Men holds up because there's always going to be a time where people feel out of place. I actually had this, one of my earliest videos that I deleted just out of ego because it didn't have a lot of views. Is I said that the Fast and the Furious is basically a comic book universe. It's basically the Claremont era X-Men, where you can do like standard superhero for a couple years, you can have them in the Outback for a couple years, but you just keep the core family aesthetic, and it melds everything together. I mean, it started as a very, very simple racing movie, and now it's basically like 10 James Bond movies being filmed at the same time. But I also don't think that the people who did the Fantastic Four really even liked the Fantastic Four that much.
That's what I was thinking.
It seemed like they were assignments to get other jobs, or I just need a job right now. Tim Story did very mediocre pedestrian work, and I forget the guy who did the last one. I think he had some ideas, but I never for one second felt like, and I liked that movie. I didn't feel like he liked the Fantastic Four. I think he probably wished he was doing a Batman movie or maybe a really dark X-Men movie.
Yeah, the guy who directed the last Fantastic Four, also known as Fan Four Stick, is the guy who directed the movie. It's like a found footage film where there are superpowers. Chronicle. Yeah, it's the same guy. So, and I think
heard
Go ahead.
I heard that they're going to be making a solo Doom movie or something. Didn't they say that last couple days?
God.
I think the thing that's executives, Dr. Doom's a king, so like he looks like a king that would have been around in like the 1800s with or I guess earlier with the armor on and all that stuff. So he looks awesome. They need to do this sort of movie like when they did Deadpool, where they made him strict to the character and made it just for fans, and everybody else goes, okay, this guy looks cool, and they all came to it.
Yeah. I mean, I'd like to see that, but I think I'm with Diversity in Comics and Aiden, where I just think the 20th Century Fox doesn't like the Fantastic Four, but they bought it. They bought the rights to it because at the time in Marvel, the biggest licenses were Spider-Man, X-Men, Fantastic Four. So they bought those, and then they made films with them. Some of them did well, some of them were completely fucked up. And then when Marvel tried to start a cinematic universe, they had to start with Iron Man and basically work with what they had left. And they became huge because, and this is what I love about the Marvel Cinematic Universe, they had enough faith that even though they didn't have access to the biggest names in their comic line, they had enough that they could still build something with it, and they did. They reminded people.
Look at Blade.
Yeah, Blade.
Oh, I know. Yeah, they started with Blade and Daredevil was well. That who has Daredevil though? That's also Fox.
That was also
Sony.
Fox.
Sony
or Sony. No, it's one of those. I don't remember which one.
Spider-Man with Sony. I think part of that is that Fox specifically is trying to dick over Marvel to try and buy the Fantastic Four rights off of them because they know that it means that they have the lock on Cosmic Marvel. Now, Marvel didn't give a shit. They made Guardians of the Galaxy, and I could not believe that when that got announced. I was like, you're going to make one of the weirdest things that you've got in your docket. And it means you have to work around not being able to have Galactus or Silver Surfer involved.
Yep.
Because they're owned. So I think the only reason that last Fantastic Four movie happened, the only reason was to maintain the rights. That was it.
Oh, guaranteed. They didn't promote it at all, you know?
Yeah, because they were ashamed of it.
Yeah. All right, so I want to, because we've been going for about almost 2.5 hours, so I want to wrap this up in a way on a funny or positive note. So I have here a short list of SJW comics. I think I may not be right on these. It's just based on what I've seen in your videos and what I think might be the case. And I want you to help me complete the list because I don't know if this is everything. This is just a few titles. So, and I'm only looking at Marvel because I wasn't sure about DC, so... and this, of course, I don't include like Dark Horse or Image or whatever because I know that there's SJW shit and there actually always has been in independent comics, especially ever since I've been reading comics. So it's always been that way.
Yeah, but I'm way more okay with that stuff too.
No,
it's just your own story.
Yeah, exactly. It's like you're doing whatever you want. You're not changing something that has a legacy, basically. So, okay, so SJW comics, Captain Marvel. This is the Carol Danvers version. Mrs. Marvel. At least I looked at the more recent issue, and there was so much, like, Islam shit in there. I was like, what the fuck? Black Panther and the Crew?
Oh, boy.
Oh, boy.
I mean, when you got the Crew in, I mean...
I know. America Chavez.
Yes.
Squirrel Girl, the Lena Dunham version, who I thought they were going to cast originally, but...
Oh man, if they did Lena Dunham as Squirrel Girl, I would be all in. I mean,
I actually would be okay with that too, just because you're doubling down on it in the most hilarious way.
Yeah. Spider Gwen, would that be off the mark?
No, I wouldn't say that one. No, that one's just kind of boring. It's not really.
The annual was really the only one that was big because of the whole Trump thing.
All right.
But the annual had a different writer, if I remember right. So.
Okay. Occupy Avengers.
I haven't read it.
I haven't read that either.
I just heard the name Occupy and figured it was part of the Occupy movement and was like, I'm not even going to buy it.
That one was so weird because they tried to jump onto Zeitgeist like 3 years late. It's like, I mean, it's better than Amadeus's Cho's Faux Hawk, but it's really behind the time.
Faux Hawks were cool back when I had hair like 10 years ago.
Okay, so Occupy Avengers maybe. Nobody's read it?
Nobody.
I've read one issue, and yeah. But
if the name is that bad to drive every single one of us away, might be some good indication.
Yeah.
And I'm an Avengers collector. You got to realize that.
I love the Avengers. Unstoppable Wasp.
Oh, definitely.
No.
OMG Science. Mockingbird.
Yeah, the science. Yeah, 100%.
Totally Awesome Hulk.
Not really.
No,
I think it's been just kind of boring and straightforward, but I wouldn't call it SJW.
Okay,
that's just like Greg Pak writing himself as the Hulk, right? I mean,
yeah. Basically, it's author insert fan fiction.
Greg Pak became Asian 3 years ago, so he had a good career. Like any writer, he just described himself as what he wrote. Nobody says Stan Lee, Jewish American. And then 3 years ago, suddenly, he's mentioned Asian every day, and every article says Asian American Greg Pak.
He really loves. I don't know if you guys. I'm probably the only one that watches basketball, but there's this Asian guy that was good like 5 years ago named Jeremy Lin.
Well, that guy.
And, like, he's still obsessed with Jeremy Lin, who's just a good role player like 5 years later.
Of course. So,
because he's Asian.
Apparently, is Unstoppable Wasp getting canceled, or do we think that it's going to be canceled?
The last issue came out last week, and then they're promoting to read it in Champions that came out this week, which is just some fantastic editing right there. But that one was in the last issue. They revealed that it was basically a top-down decision from Tom Brevoort, and then he asked Jeremy Whitley, who's I don't know, they're kind of like the Batman and Robin of fedora tippers. This really creepy, fake feminist, outright misogynist. They literally think women are adults with child minds. So they wrote this horrible. I mean, America Chavez is actually really entertaining in how bad it was, but like Unstoppable, and I actually hesitated to say something. Unstoppable Wasp almost makes me want to like call Child Protective Services and say, can you stop by it? Like, it's just really weird. The way to look at women as if they're literally that their brains stop developing when they're like 4 years old. Just really creepy on a lot of gut levels.
Yeah.
That one was canceled. I will legitimately be sad when America is canceled. But like I've said, I don't think America will get canceled. I think it will become America and the Crew, some kind of team book where they won't admit that it was being canceled. She's being promoted to leader, and I think
America
it might be an all-gay team. Well, it'll be an all-gay team.
An all-gay team.
Yeah.
The first gay superhero team.
Oh, that's got to happen. They should be also throw some trans heroes in there too.
Well, she's already got her own team in the comics in the Phi Beta fuck ups. So
that is one of those things where you know how you have a dream and it's just something ridiculous. They're like, oh, I dreamed that Max Headroom joined the Avengers, you know, and you go, that doesn't make any sense. And then they go, no, this isn't like a one-issue joke. Like, this has been her crew for like 4. The Gabby Rivera thing is insane. They literally found someone who doesn't read comics, who has no interest in comics, and she's laughing. She's just laughing. I just say, for 6 to 8 months, she's going to pay her rent on time, and all of her roommates are happy. The Gabby Rivera, but this is crazy, and she doesn't even really talk about her Twitter is like just being gay. It almost has no mention of her actually writing it.
Well, that's all she's got is her identity. So.
Yeah. I couldn't see America Chavez leading any team, considering she's basically a bitch to everyone. But at least it'll
she's a good character.
If she
in
takes
other
over,
books, I've heard she started good.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I've just read the Secret Empire tie-in with the Ultimates 2.
Yeah, Ultimates 2. Because she's the leader of that, isn't she? Also.
She's not the leader.
They don't have a leader. They rotate responsibilities on that team.
Mim,
Okay.
go ahead.
I mean, she's not a leader. I think Captain Marvel's currently running it because it's so closely related to Secret Empire, is what I've read now. But America Chavez is jumping through different dimensions to try and find Galactus.
But that's Ewing, and Ewing is amazing.
I'm not too sure on the writers. But yeah, she's basically walks up to Galactus, who's now been turned from the World Eater to the Life-Bringer, and he's having some full-on like white guilt thing, sitting down watching telly. And she just basically berates him, and it's like, bruv, come on, we fucking need you. Get up now. He's like, leave me alone, America. She's like, dickhead, and walks off. And I'm like, I like that, America Chavez.
Ewing is trying his absolute best to bring together the complete catastrophe that is the Marvel Universe. He's really trying, from what I've seen of Ultimates 2. And I think, sometimes she's leader on that, sometimes she's not. But it's like he's been handed a character who does not belong in this setting, and it's like, she's going to college. That's the interesting thing about her character.
Well, this is the sorry, go on.
That's it. It's like he doesn't know what to do in this cosmic setting with a character that has nothing interesting about her, and he's really trying. Ewing is a good writer, though.
Even the USA Avengers book that he's doing is cringe. It has like a lot of SJW topics, but like he tries to have fun with it.
Because I think he's being forced to do it, and he's like, ugh. I can see that a little bit, because there are people, like, I would say, rather than come up with things to avoid at Marvel, because it's most of it, it's probably better to say, like, hey, here are the things that aren't so bad, because 90% of it's shit. So, like, the Vision 2015 series, that was one of the best things I'd read in a long time. And that didn't get any attention at all, but that was fantastic.
All right, Mim, I'm going to give it back to you.
Oh, no, I was just going to say, like, one of the issues I'm seeing now with the Secret Empire tie-ins, especially with Carol Danvers' Ultimate, stuff like that, is that they seem to be tied to Earth by the upper management, because they're locked out of Earth by this orbital defense shield. And rather than going off on their own adventure and just let the Chitauri smash into it, you're just getting comic after comic of them sort of just hanging around, waiting for something. And you got this in the Secret Empire books, the Mighty Captain Marvel books, and the Ultimate books that are all running parallel to each other. And you're like, okay, go off and do something. Whilst the Earth is fighting over here, go do something. It was like when they sent Hulk off during Civil War, and then they run the Planet Hulk stories. He was off doing his own thing, and that's what they need to do with the more cosmic-faced heroes.
Yes, I agree. So back on the Unstoppable Wasp, it would appear that if she's being canceled, she is indeed the Stoppable Wasp. So,
well, they did a thing where they gave the Unstoppable name back to Janet Van Dyne. So I think they might be handed. But then again, she's right there in the Champions, and then she's humble bragging about being in the Avengers. So
she is in the Avengers.
Yeah, she's. They're doubling down on everything. All these failed characters, America, Moon Girl, Nadia, they're all in the advertisements for Marvel Legacy, which I thought was going to be huge, and it looks like it's going to be like a third dud in a row, because this Marvel Generations was a total flop in its first week.
Oh. All right, next on my list.
Man, I can see them handing Wasp Pedal back over to Janet Van Dyne and making that entire thing about her being a survivor of domestic abuse.
Oh my
just
God.
absolutely, let's go back to 1981 and act like it's still 1981.
They actually brought that up in Secret Empire too, and like Hank Pym right now is half Ultron, and he lost his shit.
He's like one of my favorite characters.
Yeah, mine too.
They've made him Ultron.
What? It's like all the heroes are turning into villains. It's, Cap is Hydra.
Only if they're white males.
Yeah, only if they're white men. Villains. That's true. Next on my list is Devil Dinosaur and Moon Girl. Is that her name?
Not the book, but whenever she appears in something else, she's an SJW. Yes. Very insufferable, but her book is actually good. I was shocked.
Her book is good, and it's actually one of those situations where I don't understand why Marvel is publishing that or continuing to, because the sales are garbage, but the book's actually entertaining.
Yeah, it's one that I bought for my kid. I'd always try to get him in the comics by buying it. Here's a trade, throw it at him, and then he throws it on his ground in his room.
Oh. And then my last name that I have anyway is Invincible Iron Man Riri Williams.
Oh my God! Yeah.
Who is now Queen of Latveria? Apparently,
one is. I really think they're pumping her up to have an autism reveal. I'm not even trying to be funny about that, because they've done. Because one of the things I noticed is her horrible are repeated by other authors. I just recorded a Champions 11 review thing, and she starts yelling because another hero was given some tech by Stark, and she starts flipping out on him. Now, mind you, they're sitting on an airliner filled with 300 people who are flash fried to death by microwaves and microwave radiation. And she's consistently a sociopath and a psychopath. But I think this is weird SJW code for she's autistic. She doesn't know you're not supposed to get in minor tiffs on top of corpses.
Or take over countries.
Yeah, oh yeah, that one was like, so I've got a couple Marvel insiders, and I go, are they watching our videos? Because actually Micah first said this flat out. She has a villain's origin, and I took that and ran with it. I started with Micah like a month or so ago, and then the Marvel insider was like, chill out, dude, this thing was lettered like 5 months ago. But it does sound like we're eerily. Even I would not have predicted. She's like, OMG, I like took over a country. Like it was. Then we were shown this preview cover for like 3, where I got a whole video off of just the cover, and it's literally of adults literally cooing over her and like somebody takes a picture of her. So it's just going to be an oopsie daisy that she invaded and took over a country.
Ah, fucking weird. So are there any, like bad SJW books that I left out?
The Avengers, like their main title.
Just the regular Avengers?
Yeah,
It's done by Mark Waid.
Crazy bad.
Literally, Mark Waid doesn't care about life anymore.
That is so sad. If you know anything about Mark Waid, you have to understand how sad that is. Because Mark Waid used to be,
He wrote
the greatest.
Yeah.
When I saw him last time. Oh, sorry. When I saw Mark Waid last time, he just seemed so angry and like pissed off at life. Like when I got it into an hour-long conversation with him. It just seemed like this was 2-3 years ago. He just seemed like he was like, nah, I'm done with the whole fucking thing. I've done it. I've written some of the best stuff that's out there, and I'm just gonna do whatever now. You tell me what to do, and I'll do it.
Yeah, I think Peter David's kind of the same way because he's writing.
I had that exact experience also with Peter David.
Yes, I can tell through his work because he's doing there's a Scarlet Spider series. So they brought back Ben Reilly, of all things. That's shocked the hell out of me. But Peter David's just like phoning it in, and oddly enough, it's actually much more entertaining than some other books that I've been reading, just because of how over the top and silly it is.
Mm.
Yeah, just on that, I'd say Champions.
Champions?
Yeah. I've read the first 5 or so issues. It's terrible. And Iceman, at least issues 1 and 2. Issue 3 showed promise. Let's see what they do with issue 4.
Okay.
Iceman 3 was really, really good, and it made me think again that where they do this diversity checklist, hire a gay writer to write a gay character. And the first 2 Iceman issues were ridiculously bad and really weirdly words. The third one actually turned into like a legitimate book. I think that one might be the one that's going to surprise everyone, that actual story.
Yep.
Okay.
If anything, I know me and you, we disagreed on this diversity, but there's a bit at the end where Iceman causes some actual physical lasting damage on the bad guy. And I was sitting there like, okay, that was pretty freaking cool.
I ripped it because I thought it was very unheroic. But then when I watched your video, I go, heroic, but they're setting up that he's Omega level. They're setting up that he could be a lot bigger. And I think it's really the thing I really want them to do that they are never going to touch in a million years is I want them to touch on the fan theory that Jean Grey turned Iceman gay, because that is a very, very strong fan theory.
Yeah. The fact that, he wasn't gay, Jean Grey gets into his head, and then he just becomes gay.
More like Jean Gay, am I right?
Tish.
It just makes me think of that iDubbbz thing every single time.
Okay, so I got Avengers, Champions, Iceman, Capn Cummings. You got anything to add? You already said Avengers. Diversity. Did I leave anything out? How about the?
I can't think of anything that's really SJ.
How about the Defenders? What about the Defenders? Is that a thing?
That's just boring.
Boring.
Yeah.
Is that the one where they were in the hospital for like 3 issues or something like that? Just hanging around? Okay.
I reviewed a Spider-Man, the Miles Morales Spider-Man today, where he sat and talked to his fat friend the entire book.
Oh.
Nothing happened.
Riveting, man.
Oh my god. Oh my god. Okay, well, if there's nothing else to add to this list, then I will go on to the final thing, which is us trying to end it on a high note. So first off, before I ask this last question, I want to say thank you so much for taking the time to come on and stream with me and with each other. If you guys, I hope you had a good time. Because if we could, maybe we could try to do this again sometime, and then I'll maybe have different guests on. Well, we'll wait until some other sort of event happens or a couple of more issues have come out, see if as things unfold. Maybe this milkshake thing will, escalate or de-escalate or whatever, and then maybe we can do another stream sometime. So before I close it out, I want to ask you guys about a book that you're currently reading that is good, that you would recommend to somebody, either from Marvel, DC, or independent, or all, whatever it is. So I'm going to start with Mim Headroom.
All right. So despite the fact that we just slagged off Jean Grey turning Iceman gay, I would say don't sleep on the Jean Grey series. Dennis Hopeless has been handed a lemon, and he is making something that is actually quite entertaining to read. Flick through a couple of pages, see if it's your thing, see if you can get over what's happened in the past, and give it a shot.
All right, Jean Grey. Micah?
Some of my usuals that are in the chat can probably already predict what I'm going to say, but I'm going to say it anyway, and it's definitely Venom. I can't talk the book up enough. It is an old school comic book story. And right now they have Eddie Brock hunting down Stegron, the Dinosaur Man. Who doesn't want to read that?
I want to read that.
It is in all seriousness though, it is a fun comic, and it nails the character. It has a conflict that Eddie is trying to solve, both on a personal level and on an outside level that is sort of a short-term conflict. And the way that Mike Costa is kind of setting up things is just wonderful, because he's really bringing Brock back into the Spider-Man universe on a scale that I don't think people realize yet, because he's working for Alchemax and for Liz Allen, who is the mother of Harry Osborn's child, and on top of that, he's doing work for them, and there's an interior conflict between Eddie and the symbiote that is, in my opinion, just fascinating. So the way that they're going to go, they're going through this, I think, is going to reintroduce Venom as kind of a torn character in a lot of ways, but also keep him a little bit more mature. So if you're looking for a fun comic to read that's kind of got an old school writing sense to it, Venom's your bet. If not that, then go read Invincible. Invincible's great too.
All right. Thank you for that. That sounds really good. I'm going to write Invincible down here now. I'm making a note.
Long haul on Invincible. Like Walking Dead, man.
Diversity. Diversity in comics. What is a great book that you're actually enjoying? If there is one.
And this is one where...
Wait, you broke up a bit. I'm sorry. You broke up a bit. You start over?
Oh, yeah. Black Bolt by Saladin Ahmed. This is a book that was... they literally did diversity checklist. This guy's a Muslim. He's on Twitter all the time. The book is excellent, and it's a total shock. And it's one of those things where I'm actually hearing people jump on board. The other one is Thanos. Thanos is really, really good.
Thanos has his own book?
Yes.
Okay, and Black Bolt, right?
Yeah, Thanos.
Okay.
Yeah, Thanos and Black Bolt.
You know what? I know that we were talking shit about the Inhumans being made into a series, and I don't have high hopes for it because it looks a little low budget, but I love Black Bolt. I just think that the Inhumans are really interesting, and Black Bolt was my favorite.
They are.
Great look, and also the power makes him super interesting too, because he can't really say anything. So I just think that's super interesting. That's only some shit that fucking Jack Kirby and Stan Lee would come up with. All right, Capn Cummings.
Okay, I'm going to pick one that I've only read the first issue, but the series is over, and I'm waiting for it to come out in trade so I can just read it in an hour, because that's how long they take usually with trades. Kingpin. This is one that I think went under the radar with everybody because they have so many books. And the first issue was awesome because it's doing this whole story where he's trying to hire a journalist to write a good story about him, and he's trying to, be a good person to her. But at the same time, you got the flip side of him being a mobster and killing people and all that different type of stuff. So
Kingpin is banging, bruv. You will absolutely enjoy that when you get it in trade.
Mm-hmm.
Kingpin.
Awesome.
All right. And Aiden?
Picking one is hard for me. The thing is, I don't read Marvel or DC at all anymore. So I'd have to... dang.
It doesn't have to be a Marvel or DC book?
Oh, no, it's not going to be one. It's not going to be it.
Oh, okay.
It's which one that's not... what I say is my favorite. I would say right now I'm really tied between my two favorites, between Low, which is Rick Remender, and Descender, which is Jeff Lemire. Those are both Image titles. They're freaking fantastic. Some of the more long-running ones, East of West, which is Hickman. I'll name a female writer to be a feminist here. Becky Cloonan, who is writing Southern Cross. It's really good.
Becky Cloonan, Southern Cross. Okay.
There's a woman writer on there, but Rook Remender, I think with comics is, even though Mark Waid's gone, I think Waid and David just don't care anymore because they've been through this shit so long. Usually, if you know the writer, you see Rook Remender's name on something. Very rarely, Jeff Lemire. You see their names, Hickman, Brian Wood. I know he's divisive, but you see a name like that on something, you're like, it's probably gonna be quality.
All right. No, those are great recommendations. And also, I'm reminded, I think Micah mentioned this earlier in the stream. He mentioned Unworthy Thor as being really good. So I'm going to go ahead and write that one down, too.
Absolutely.
Yeah, Unworthy Thor is good, yeah.
Yeah, people who are looking for a return to Thor Odinson, read that book, listen to Amon Amarth. You'll have a fun time.
All right. Well, I got nothing else. We've been going for almost 3 hours, so I don't want to make the streams too long because people they have a tendency to tune out after 2 hours unless they were watching us live. But we will be putting out an edited and condensed version of this stream on Honey Badger Radio probably in about a day or two. So I want to very just with a great aplomb, I want to thank Mim Headroom, Micah Curtis, Diversity in Comics, Capn Cummings, even though we didn't bring him until a little bit later. Apologize for that. And Aiden Paladin for joining me on this stream about comics. I am extremely passionate about comics. I want to see them be good. I want to see Marvel and DC do better because I think that good competition only creates better stories. And right now, especially in the case of Marvel, they are not... I don't think they're doing their job as well as they could be. So this is... I think this is a productive conversation. I enjoyed it myself. I had a good time. I hope you guys did too. Yes?
Oh, yeah, very much, my man.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. And for everybody here, hit me up on Twitter. I followed all of you guys who I wasn't following on YouTube, but yeah, we should all chill out some time.
We should definitely we'll definitely do this again, and I'll try to get somebody else like Appabend on too or something. I want to also let you guys that are watching, if you are here because of Honey Badger Radio and you don't know who these people are, I put links to all of their channels in the low bar. Definitely go over there and subscribe if this comics thing is interesting because they all make really great videos. I mean, Micah's are very well thought out. Mim's are very narrative in the way that he approaches, like going through each panel page to page. Aiden does long form. I mean, you should be subscribed to her anyway. And like Diversity does like fucking 3 videos a day or something. I don't even know how you do it, but you just you make like multiple videos a day. There, it's all good stuff. And of course, Captain looks like Dr. Randomcam, so why wouldn't you sub to him? So do that. Also, consider subscribing to this channel. Smash that like button, and follow me because I'm going to be doing more streams like this. I'm actually planning on doing a stream pretty soon where I'm going to take the Big 5 personality test. I'm kind of curious to see what I'm going to get. So if you're interested in that, come checking me out. So otherwise, again, I want to thank everybody for coming on today's stream, talking about comics. And one more thing. Actually, I just had this thought. What do you guys think about Patriotica? Do you guys know about that?
I actually pledged to it.
You pledged to it?
I pledged. I'm waiting to see what it's going to read like once I get my hands on it.
Extra thick!
Oh, yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah. Yeah. Aiden?
Yeah, waiting to see.
Okay.
Same here.
We'll see.
Diversity? Do you know?
I wasn't interested in it. I don't know. I'm not really into Kickstarter comics, even though I've done them. And I don't know.
Yeah.
It didn't really appeal to me.
All I got was from what I saw. All I saw was, my first thought was boobs. It looks like a woman, like legit. That's basically that's where that
was basically it.
Yeah,
One last
that's my
quote on
response.
that. If you guys are pissed off at mainstream comics, web comics they're the thing now. You can get any kind of weird, crazy stuff, and it's for free online. Like unsounded stuff like that. Ava's Demon, and then not even talking about going into Korean web comics and stuff like that. You can get all kinds of crazy shit. It's not as bad and dire as it seems.
And what's awesome about webcomics is you can actually see the artists get better as they're drawing too.
I love that. Yeah.
Yeah, you should see the Penny Arcade comics from like the beginning as an example. It looks like bad graffiti art in the beginning, and now he's like pretty amazing. All right, so again, final thoughts. I mean, final words is thank you guys for coming on to the stream today. We will talk to you very soon. And as always,